Hey guys, Wrestling Throwdown here, and this is a special tonight. I'm here with quite a few of my very good friends, starting off first with, of course, my co-host, Mr. Joe Pazzarelli.
Roll the dice, baby. Let's talk some WrestleMania throwdown style.
And of course, you guys know Mr. Josh Jones. I did a video with him a few weeks ago.
From the mouth of hell straight in the old damn living room.
Nice.
And Mr. Michael Miner, you guys know him. I've done a few with him before.
What's up, chicos?
Oh,
And of course, our wonderful host tonight who's going to be taking over is Mr. Christopher Sterling.
Hey, what up, everybody?
no dreamer videos in that.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about WrestleMania. I know a lot of people are excited. Next week is WrestleMania 31, even though Vince McMahon wanted to take away the numbers. Why? Because he thinks that having the higher number will make WrestleMania too old, which I think is kind of BS. But anyway, it is what it is. But anyway, WrestleMania.
Remember the WrestleMania 31's WrestleMania play button.
Right?
Yeah,
WrestleMania. It works for the Super Bowl, but it doesn't work for Mania. Gotta love it.
Right. What's next? You're going to be, WrestleMania, the Xbox logo. Like, what the hell?
But anyway,
WrestleMania, spinning beach ball from Microsoft to death. Just it's done.
Yep.
Ah.
But anyway, when it comes to WrestleMania, we all feel like it's our Super Bowl or our mecca event when it comes to professional wrestling. Before we get into talking about WrestleMania, we're gonna actually do a little icebreaker activity where we pretty much say which first WrestleMania that we ever watched and then got hooked into it. So I'm gonna start off with Haley. With you, Haley, which WrestleMania did you watch for the first time?
Mine was actually WrestleMania 19. I started watching wrestling very shortly after WrestleMania 18, so I actually missed that one. And WrestleMania 19, then obviously that's one of everyone's favorites, obviously, with Steve Austin and The Rock. So I guess I started off good, but yeah, that was my first one.
Oh, cool. How about you, Joe?
My first WrestleMania that I watched was WrestleMania 14. I liked wrestling growing up, but I kind of fell out of love in the mid-90s with it when it kind of hit a lull period, especially in the WWF, and that was before I got into WCW. And WrestleMania 14 was what got me into it. I was a huge Mike Tyson fan, still am. And that build, get Mike Tyson in there, and I was hearing all about Austin and what he was doing, and I watched the whole show, and after that, I never missed one.
Awesome. How about you, Mike? First ever WrestleMania you ever watched?
First WrestleMania I watched, I would have to say 1993's WrestleMania. 1994's WrestleMania is when I got into watching wrestling. Was back in '93, and I got into first watching wrestling the very first day of Monday Night Raw when it first appeared on USA. But yeah, I would say the WrestleMania 1994 is when I got into watching wrestling, into Mania.
Very nice.
And last but not least, Josh.
For me, it was WrestleMania 91. WrestleMania, I believe it was WrestleMania 7. I had become a major fan, obviously, after the debut of The Undertaker, and watch him take on Jimmy Superfly Snuka was something I begged my uncle to let me watch at his house, and thankfully I was able to go over and watch it. Haven't missed one
That's
since.
number one of the streak, right?
Say what?
Wasn't that the first one of the streak? Snuka?
That was number one.
Him and Jimmy Snuka was his first ever victory at WrestleMania.
And here's a quick aside. People forget Jimmy Snuka used to be called the Phenom, and with the Undertaker's performance over Jimmy Snuka, it was Gorilla Monsoon on commentary who dubbed the Undertaker the Phenom that night, thus kind of passing the torch from Jimmy Snuka to the Undertaker.
Very interesting. I did not know that.
It says in the commentary, they say it.
Yes. For me, my first WrestleMania, and I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of feel old now hearing all your guys' first WrestleManias. Mine is WrestleMania 3, when I was
Nice.
a little. Of course, the body slam that pretty much echoed the whole wrestling world was what got me into watching wrestling when I saw Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant. After that, watching WrestleMania was on and off, especially when it comes to watching it live. And the time where I was hooked into watching every single WrestleMania was at, I believe, WrestleMania 18. Before that, it was at Raw. It was when Hulk Hogan came back to the WWE, and The Rock challenged him to WrestleMania. And I'm like, I gotta watch this. I must watch it. And ever since then, I've been watching every single WrestleMania, except for WrestleMania, I believe, 2022. I kind of missed because I was in the hospital after a car accident. So I kind of missed that because I really wanted to see Mick Foley versus Edge in that hardcore match. But like I said, my first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 3. It was like one of my very iconic moments into getting involved into professional wrestling as well. So,
hey, you're dreaming of a WrestleMania to get you hooked in WrestleMania 3. Come on now. 90,000 strong in the Superdome, brother.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Silverdome.
Pontiac Silverdome. Please don't pull a Hulk Hogan like you did at last year.
We have our first botch of the evening.
Oh, yeah.
I had to go there.
But anyway, now that we got this out of the way, we're gonna do a little quick retrospect on the first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 1, which took place at Madison Square Garden. Vince McMahon had a vision. In my opinion, and I know some people have a different opinion on the theory of why Vince McMahon created WrestleMania, was to bridge the gap between professional wrestling and major pop culture, like mainstream pop culture. Because it was part of our pop culture in America, but wasn't as involved as it is now. You hear about wrestling at Madison Square Garden, down south with NWA, AWA, but it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And it was because they were drawn in like celebrities like Cyndi Lauper. Like everyone remembers the time where Cyndi Lauper got pie-faced by what's his name? By Roddy Piper, yeah. And that really sparked a lot of controversy and got a lot of people interested into watching this event, especially the war to sell the score, I think is what it's called, between Hogan and Roddy Piper. And that sparked a lot. And of course, you got Mr. T involved, and they did the tag team match at the end of the show. I think it was Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff with Bob Orton on their side, Mr. T, Hulk Hogan, and Jimmy Snuka on their side, with Muhammad Ali as the enforcer. So again, that was another huge thing. So a lot of big popular celebrities took place in WrestleMania. Has any of you seen WrestleMania 1?
I have, yeah.
What do you thought of it? Oh, you haven't?
Certainly.
I haven't either.
Vision of getting celebrities involved. And I feel like before WrestleMania 1, the first real celebrity involvement in professional wrestling wasn't even WWF. It was Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler on David Letterman. And I feel like Vince kind of saw what was happening with that, piggybacked off it. Of course, Captain Lou Albano was the uncle of Cyndi Lauper, so that helped bring Cyndi Lauper in. They had, you know that? That helped. He's legit Cyndi Lauper's uncle, so Captain Lou helped bring her in. And obviously Liberace there, Billy Martin. And Muhammad Ali, from what I had heard, Muhammad Ali was starting to feel the effects of his boxing career, and he wasn't as engaging as he used to be. And Muhammad Ali was actually tough to deal with on that show, from what I've heard from inside stories, because he was starting to, be sicker and the, debilitating disease. Take Parkinson's, I think is what he has, right? It was starting to really affect at that point.
Yeah, but kind of sad that that's Muhammad
my,
Ali.
my view on WrestleMania 1, and I disagree slightly with the pop culture in a way, though. I
Okay.
look at it more or less that Vince had seen the way that Starrcade was starting to take off. The
Yes.
pay-per-view wrestling was starting to become really big. He was also trying to capitalize off the way the Super Bowl was. It was a once-a-year major league event that millions of people tuned in to see, drew huge houses, and sold out all the, would sell out the arena. I think that Vince saw that and went, hey, look, if I can do that to professional wrestling, then I can make a mint doing it. Also, I do believe it was to bring wrestling more or less to the forefront of American pop culture, because America has never had the same view of professional wrestling as the rest of the world. Japan, it's considered a martial art. Mexico, it is as big there as it will ever be. America has just kind of seen it almost as a sideshow. So I think Vince was trying to get it more mainstream acceptance and more, what's the word I'm looking for? More popular acceptance than it would be something like, oh, you're a wrestling fan, oh, you're one of them, oh, whatever. To something like, oh, you're a wrestling fan, well, let's talk about it. And I gotta say, for the most part, Vinnie Mac did all right with it.
Oh yeah, and you got to give Hulk Hogan a lot of credit. Certainly, he was the poster child that everything was marketed behind, going back to before WrestleMania 1 when he beat the Iron Sheik and and Hulkamania rather began. So they really piggybacked off that. Whether you like Hogan or not, they probably wouldn't have been a big star to build WrestleMania around without Hulk Hogan.
I agree with with Hogan because you look at, we'll leave the modern day stuff for a little bit later, but Hogan, no matter who you were back in the 80s, if you said the words pro wrestling, oh, that's the thing that Hogan's involved in. Or if you were down south, that's the thing that Ric Flair does. It's those two names that built the credibility of professional wrestling into that mainstream pop culture that area of it. Where if you don't know what it is, you mention one or two names, oh, now I know because it's this guy that you're mentioning. Hogan, no matter what you think of him as a worker, as a person, he built professional wrestling up in this country. So,
Absolutely. Minor, your thoughts?
I wasn't pretty much around that time era. I wasn't even born yet when that era started. And I've been watching a lot of stuff. I was watching WrestleMania Rewind about WrestleMania 1 when it all first started out and that kind of deal. To me, I don't know, because I wasn't around that time when I wasn't even born yet when WrestleMania 1 even started.
He was a pre-pubescent minor.
I wasn't either, but obviously you guys brought up the Hulk Hogan point, and I completely agree, because even my dad, he would be like, oh yeah, like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, those were the two names that obviously, when I talked to him about it, those were the two names that were brought up. And now it's more like John Cena, but obviously everyone knows John Cena.
Yes. And
well,
obviously, we'll get to that, but Cena, I could argue that Cena's been on top than Hogan in that his involvement in WrestleMania, when we look at it maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, he'll have more of an effect than Hogan did because he was on more than Hogan was. Just a thought. And we got Duo Dreamer back.
Yep. All right. So after WrestleMania 1, I believe Pat Patterson gave the idea to Vince. How about WrestleMania 2? And WrestleMania 2 was actually an interesting show. And I believe Joe and Josh would know why. Do you guys know why it was interesting?
yes, it was filmed in 3 separate locations.
Yes.
There were 3 main events in 3 houses.
Right.
Yep.
One in New York, one in the Chicago area, and one in the Los Angeles area, which, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting concept. Like, would you guys believe that it could work in today's era wrestling if they did
No.
one event in 3 different venues?
No, I don't think it could work because you would have, at that point, if you looked at the 3 main events, the big event obviously was with Hogan, which is what drew the biggest house out of all of them. If you did that now and you had all 3 separate events with the way that everything goes, you would have a tough time in today's wrestling community of people deciding what one they wanted to go to. So you might
Yeah.
actually lose ticket sales off of that. So at that point, because wrestling wasn't as big or it didn't have the momentum that it has now, it was just starting to build it. It was a perfect concept for that time period. Nowadays, there's no way in hell. It would,
This
unfortunately, as much as I would love to see something like that happen, it would flop.
There's a few
Mhm.
points. Number one, this was pre-pay-per-view. This was closed circuit. So people went to movie theaters to go see this. This was even before pay-per-view was even instituted for WrestleMania 1 and 2. Number
No,
two, now there's not
no,
even pay-per-view. Huh?
no, actually, WrestleMania 2 was the first WrestleMania to be on pay-per-view, actually.
Yeah, it was on
Right?
pay-per-view. It was on
Okay, it's not.
pay-per-view.
It was on closed circuit.
Yeah, but nowadays you don't even have pay-per-view. We have the WWE Network, and because WrestleMania is a week-long event with the Hall of Fame, with access, I think it would be too difficult to divide that event up into 3 different cities, given that you have access, you have the Hall of Fame, you have all these separate events that are now tied into WrestleMania, where it's almost like a week-long festival of wrestling, where it
Yeah.
was not like,
I didn't think of that. You're right, because, you look at when people buy tickets to Mania, they can buy tickets to go see the Hall of Fame. They have the individual superstars that are appearing on every day during the WrestleMania Access week. It really has, as you just said, Joe, become a wrestling vacation almost, where it's a week-long extravaganza that just has such a build to it. So do you really want to do 3 separate WrestleMania accesses? Well, what if your superstar isn't at the place that you want to see the match at? You're going to lose that. Well, I want to go to the Hall of Fame, but the match I want to see is across the country. Therein lies another problem. So you can't, again, it is just, unfortunately, in this day and age, there's no way you can pull it off.
Hmm.
And I think we lost Joe.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, because that was a question I was really interested in, wanted to ask if it could pull it off, and it's clear, like what Josh said, it it can't happen. It just wouldn't happen, because I know there's some people who would say, oh, I want to see Daniel Bryan, but we don't know which event, which venue he's gonna be at, so it's kind of like, hit and miss kind of thing, and you do lose. WWE do lose a lot out of this. So, but the other thing that was interesting about WrestleMania 2 was also they had a battle royal. The WWF stars versus the NFL stars. And we saw William Perry well, I wouldn't say he eliminated Big John Studd, because he got eliminated and he took him with him. That's how he got in the Hall of Fame, which is kind of weird. But anyway, it's really interesting to me that Andre the Giant won that battle royal. It makes me wonder, did they make the Andre Memorial Battle Royal as a tribute to that moment, that first battle royal at WrestleMania, because he won it? Was it because of that? Is why they have the Memorial Battle Royal for Andre the Giant?
that's an excellent point. I never really that comparison. That's an excellent point.
I don't think it's that. If you look at a career retrospective of Andre the Giant, he was undefeated in battle royals. If there was a battle royal in any territory that Andre was booked in, he was always booked in it, and he went over every single time. So I think it was more or less a nod to Andre's dominance in that, and they're taking it as, well, if you can dominate this battle royal, it shows your dominance as a superstar. If the crowd's behind you, it's showing that they're ready to accept you, and it's become much like Money in the Bank ladder match was for those few years. It's the Honor of the Giant Battle Royal is supposed to be, we'll get into this a little bit later, at least I will, with Cesaro, it was supposed to be a launching pad for him, or for the winner of the Battle Royal, and, well, we saw Cesaro, that was just a bullet to the head. So I'm hoping that this year they kind of bring it back to where it should have been, which is a launch pad for the career of the next generation of star. Somebody like, let's say Daniel Bryan goes over. No, sorry, Daniel Bryan's in the ladder match. Say somebody like Eric Rowan winning it or something, or Ryback, just something to really put that guy over. get him where he needs to be to put him into that main event picture. Much like when Andre was building his career in Battle Royals, that's what put him in his position. I think they're using that to almost replicate the creation of Andre's legacy and myth.
Excellent point. I will say my favorite part of WrestleMania 2, guys, and I'm a little biased. I'm a Roddy Piper guy myself. Roddy Piper and Macho Man, two of my favorites from the 80s. Piper and Mr. T, you had legit hatred behind this actual boxing match. And, of course, you had the infamous punch by Mr. T, which completely whiffed, but Piper sold it anyway, and to this day he regrets selling it. But that, to me, was the most intriguing part of WrestleMania 2. That was the Chicago main event, with Roddy Piper and Mr. T. And, of course, you can't ignore Bundy and Hogan in the cage, which I thought was one of Hogan's better WrestleMania matches, personally.
See, I'm going to say it wasn't just one of Hogan's better WrestleMania matches, it was one of his best matches, period. He actually went out there and put on a darn good performance for Hogan, you know, and the Mr. T, Roddy Piper boxing abortion that happened in the ring. I know you're a big fan of it. I'm sorry. You know, there's one thing that I'll never forget about that from watching tape, because I was just being born at that point. So I remember watching when he took that stool and hummed it. And you could see that he was trying to take T's head completely off his shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
And the punch that missed, when he sold it like $1 million, it was just, at that point, it was the first real time you went, ooh, fake. It was the first big, real botch that I can remember. And,
it exposed...
it definitely broke the fourth wall. There's no doubt that kind of came down a little bit right there, and you went, oh, mm-mm.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the wrestling roundtable or whatever it was that they did, Legends of Wrestling, the roundtable panel, which I loved that. I wish they never took that away. That was fantastic.
Great.
I remember when Rowdy was saying, you know, that how was he supposed to go through the rope because he had no thumb on his glove, and you know he wanted a little bit of. It was just that one little piece of business, and he blew it because he didn't want to do it. And Rowdy, being the professional that he is, Piper went for it, did his job, and ended up getting heat over it, and I felt bad.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to get into a really interesting debate. And I hope everyone gets going to be part of this, because I know at least all of us have seen this match. I'm talking about WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome. Not the Superdome, the Pontiac Silverdome.
What you gonna do when Hulk Hogan botches on you, brother?
But anyway, this has been a huge debate amongst a lot of wrestling fans till this day on which match was considered match of the night. Hogan versus Andre for the title, or Steamboat versus Savage for the Intercontinental Championship. And for the longest time, a lot of people debate which was the match of the night. Some say it was the main event. Some say it was Hogan, Savage, and Steamboat. So we're gonna get into this little debate here, and we can go off. We can go off on as much as you can, because, like I said, this is a very passionate video that we're doing.
Oh,
so
man.
I'm gonna start with Haley. Haley, have you seen Steamboat?
I've seen Andre and Hogan, yes.
Okay, and Steamboat and Savage?
I have not seen that one, but I have seen the Hogan and Andre, so I'm a little bit, I don't know if I'll really get too much into the debate, but it was an outstanding match. To me, obviously, I can't really say much on the other match, but to me, that was the match, obviously, of the night.
No way.
And see, already. Even though I can't stand Hogan and everything like that, he was obviously the man back in the day. There's no doubt about that. He was the wrestler. He was the one that everyone watched for. He was the one that made wrestling what it was today. And obviously, like I said, like John Cena makes it today. Whether you like him or you hate him, he does.
Oh, man, you got me and Joe chomping a bit over here.
Go ahead, Josh.
All right. First off,
I'm gonna,
I know I'm going to get a cheap pop out of Joe, who he has lost again in this damn video feed. For me, yes, the main event was technically Hogan Andre. I get that. The true main event, by every standard you look at it, was the Intercontinental Championship, was Steamboat versus Savage. We had 15 near falls in that match. It was a hang on the edge of your seat, nail biter. That was the match that that was the first time I ever saw it. It happened years before I ever got to actually watch the tape of it. I was sitting there, I knew the outcome, and I'm biting my nails because it was one of the most exciting matches of that time period. It showed that Savage was ready. Savage was one of the best workers at that point. It showed that Steamboat still had everything it took to be a main event caliber superstar, and the fact he didn't go farther really still pisses me off to this day. Yeah, Hogan and Andre was the big advertised main event. But, in my opinion, that match between Savage and Steamboat established the term the Dark Horse or Sleeper match of the night. Because that stole the show, that became the show, and that is what I remember WrestleMania 3 for. Was two fantastic in-ring workers doing what they did best at the top of their game, and nobody at that point could have ever touched them. Not to take anything away from Andre and Hogan at all, it was a great match for Hogan. It was the end of the end of Andre's career. It was a nice swan song for him, if you will. But WrestleMania 3 to me, Savage Steamboat, no doubt. And the emotional ending of that was just when you saw Steamboat going out, it was just beautiful. It was the picture perfect match in my opinion. So that to me was the main event.
Minor, go ahead, baby.
Pretty much mine, I would say, have to be match tonight was Steamboat and Savage. When I saw that match during the WrestleMania Rewind, it was one of my favorites. The Hogan and Andre was really good. Somewhat of a match tonight, but I have to say Savage and Steamboat's Intercontinental title match was pretty much match of the night during that WrestleMania.
One point I did forget that I'll throw in real quick. Sorry to cut you off, Joe. The only thing that I really think that it was different about with the Hogan and Andre compared to the Savage and Steamboat was that night Andre passed the torch to Hogan. But during the Savage and Steamboat match, the new torch was lit as to who was going to be the next people to really carry that torch of professional wrestling. So you had the passing of the generational torch of the torch of the man, and you had the lighting of the next generation's torch in the match with Savage and Steamboat. That's going to be where I'm going to cut it there.
I think there are two ways to look at it, and Josh, I think you're going to be surprised the first thing I say. What drew the house is the first question I ask. What drew the house is Andre and Hogan, no doubt about it. The reason why 90,000 in that stadium in the Silverdome, brother, is because of Andre and Hogan. Now, you can go back. You could even go back to 1981 in the show in Shea Stadium where Larry Zbyszko was on that show as well, who's going to the Hall of Fame this year. And Hogan slammed Andre as a heel in 1981, slammed him in Shea Stadium. So that match was not the first time Andre was. I don't even think Hogan was the first person who slammed him. I think it was John Studd or someone. I don't think I'm right about that, but I know that wasn't even the first case. Who?
Harley Race.
Yeah, you're right. King Harley. Yep, it was Harley Race. You're all right about that. But, so that match drew the house. However, I feel like the more we look back on it, Savage and Steamboat stands the test of time because that match we continue to talk about, and that match, you're right, Josh, it set the bar into what could be a show-stealing match. To where you look at WrestleMania down the line, a match like Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels, which was not billed as the main event, but clearly stole the show on that WrestleMania card, or other WrestleMania cards going forward. That set the bar, like you said, for matches to steal the show. But you want to talk about drawing power? It was Hogan and Andre, and it wasn't just the match itself, it was the build to the match. It was Andre finally turning heel after, 20 years of being a babyface? And being involved with Bobby Heenan, who is the best manager ever, as far as I'm concerned, maybe besides Paul Heyman, in terms of getting his client heat. So pairing Andre with Bobby the Brain Heenan, the segment on Piper's Pit where Andre rips Hogan's necklace off and Rowdy's like, you're bleeding. That whole story and setup is what drew 90,000. The match itself, I'll almost compare it in a way to Rock Hogan. When you watch Rock Hogan without the sound off, it's not that great of a match. But when you have the sound on, the crowd tells the story. And I think as much as Savage Steamboat was the match of the night and will stand the test of time, the crowd, even though that match itself wasn't that great, and there was backstage drama of, was Andre even going to do the job for Hogan? There was all kinds of ramifications to that match that people didn't even know. Andre was undefeated for 20 years. Was he even going to pass the torch to Hogan? So all of that added to the intrigue of the match. Match quality-wise, it's Savage Steamboat, but I'll always looking at it from the promoter's point of view. That match did draw the house, so we wouldn't have had 90,000 plus to see Savage Steamboat steal the show if not for Hogan and Andre.
Good points, man. I can't actually deny any one of them. I mean, Hogan and Andre definitely drew the house, but though they drew the house, Savage and Steamboat entertained the hell out of them.
Ooh, yeah, and this is coming from a Macho Man guy, too, by the way.
So, speaking of matches like that, like Steamboat and Savage, that somehow always stole the show at a WrestleMania. Like, since that time, when people talk about Savage and Steamboat, they always want to find, are there any matches like that that is almost as good or better than the main event? So what I want to do now is we're going to talk about some matches that were actually either as good or better as the main event in WrestleMania. So this is where we can go on and talk about multiple WrestleManias, but talk about that one match from that particular WrestleMania that was either as good or as better as the main event. For me, in my opinion, one of the matches that I felt was better than the main event was that WrestleMania 7. And that was Savage versus the Ultimate Warrior.
Yes.
The career match between the two. I felt that match, and this is actually, in my opinion, one of Ultimate Warrior's best matches out of most of the ones I've seen that I've ever seen him perform, and who was working with. He was working with Randy Savage. And it was a lot better than Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter. You know, as much as that was a big draw, it didn't do much for me. I mean, I loved Hulk Hogan back then, but that match didn't do anything for me. The match that really did a lot for me was Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage. And of course, that ending where Savage finally reunites with Miss Elizabeth.
Still makes me cry.
Moment. And it's been like 2 years in the making that we want to see them back together, you know. So I don't want to take up too much time on me talking about other matches, but I want to know about you guys. Any matches from other WrestleManias that you felt was better or as good as the main event? And go ahead. We can start with Joe.
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this one. There's a few I'll throw out there. WrestleMania 2000, the TLC, the original. It wasn't even called TLC. The Triangle Ladder match.
Oh
Hardy's,
my God.
Edge and Christian. That raised in tag team wrestling so high, and that was the main event of that show as far as I'm concerned. The main event was that four-way elimination with Big Show, Rock, Trips, and Mick Foley, which should have been just Rock versus Triple H when you think about it. That would have been that really would have drawn, but it didn't. And I go to that. I mentioned Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho. I believe that was 19 in Seattle. Am I correct? Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho.
It was 19 at Safeco Field. Fantastic match.
Amazing.
That sold the show, and I thought that got Shawn Michaels in that second part of his career where the next year he fought Angle, stole the show, and then so on and so forth. Even his match with Vince, and of course WrestleMania 25, guys. Shawn Michaels Undertaker 1. That's the ultimate example. That was not the main event. It should have been.
All right. Hang on. Now, this is where I'm going to jump in because you mentioned the guy that inspired me to actually first ever lace up my first pair of boots. Taker, Michaels, WrestleMania 25. Not only is that a match that was better than the main event, that is probably the single greatest match in WrestleMania, if not wrestling history. You can also look at, like you said, WrestleMania 19, the Safeco Field with Michaels and Jericho. You look at WrestleMania 2000, the Triangle Ladder match, which was one of those matches that, much like Savage and Steamboat, will stand the test of time. But I also go to WrestleMania 10, which I don't believe it was the main event, was Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, the ladder match for the Intercontinental title.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Amazing.
it was one of the best ladder matches. I don't care. Yeah, you have all these guys who do all these crazy, crazy bumps off ladders now. I've done a few, and I question my sanity for doing it. But, you look at it and you go, without that match, you wouldn't have the Triangle Ladder match that happened at WrestleMania. And those two went out there and just went. And I don't care any match. I could have paid full price for WrestleMania 10 and got my money's worth just out of that ladder match. WrestleMania 2000, I could have got my money's worth just out of the triple threat, the Triangle Ladder match. WrestleMania 25, Taker Shawn was WrestleMania, was worth the $50. Hell, I would have paid double to see that. And like you had said, and I will counter with I'll actually add to your point there, Joe. If you look at what WrestleMania 10 did for Michaels, elevating him with Razor, he was reestablished to that very same level with Jericho. But it also elevated Jericho to another level. Because he could hang with Shawn. He could hang with the greatest, and I'm sorry, Ric Flair, greatest professional wrestler of all time. Undertaker, greatest gimmick of all time. Shawn Michaels, greatest in-ring performer, bar none. That established Shawn that he could still go at his age, that the injury had not slowed him down, and that showed that Jericho was the next big guy, and he was ready for that main event, ready to carry any world title that was put on him, and he could main event the show and be believable and do his job well.
I got one more to add before everyone else throws in, and then I'll shut up. I think this was WrestleMania 27. This is a random one. CM Punk and Randy Orton.
Oh, wow.
That is one people don't talk about. But I thought that was a very lackluster WrestleMania, and that match stole the show on that WrestleMania.
What was the main event in 27?
Yeah, with Rock with the Reps.
What was it?
Miz and Cena.
Oh God! Anything could have done better than that. I forgive my language here. I'm pretty sure that Chris, Joe, and myself could get in a ring, drop trow, and take a shit. It would be more entertaining to watch than that match was.
I have to agree.
You talk about this WrestleMania?
That'd be the one. I believe. Yep.
God.
Sure.
Well, how about you, Michael? Were there any matches in WrestleMania that was as good or better than the main event, in your opinion?
In my opinion, my matches that I thought was really better, I have to go with WrestleMania 10, the first ever ladder match with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. And my other one had to be the first ever TLC at WrestleMania between Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. The famous Jeff Hardy coming off the ladder through a table with Bubba Ray, and the famous Edge spear with Jeff dangle around with the title belts and did that spear was amazing. And the other one that I thought was good was Edge versus Mick Foley in a hardcore match when he speared him right through that table of flames. I was like off my seat and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, incredible moment.
Oh, yeah.
You
How
know,
about you,
there's
Haley?
actually another one I thought of.
Alrighty, well, I have to go with obviously Shawn Michaels and Undertaker for my first one. And for my second one, a lot of people have gotten into a debate with me on this one. It's a recent one, WrestleMania 29, Punk and Undertaker. I still, obviously, the build up to that was incredible, and the match was phenomenal. And obviously, no one wanted to see Rock and Cena, anyways. So, and that was the main event. So, but obviously, everyone kind of said that Punk should have defeated the streak, obviously, instead of Brock and everything. That was like the whole thing. And that, what do you guys think about that? I want to ask you guys that. Do you guys think that the right person? And I know Josh, he's gonna have a lot to say. Do you guys think the right person?
I think Punk had a chance of going over in that match until Paul Bearer passed away, and then that match turned into something different. That's what I think.
I agree with that.
That's good.
I definitely agree that I think that it was supposed to be Punk that was going to go over, and then Paul Bearer passed away, and there was no way in hell that the WWE was going to let Taker do the honors after the passing of Punk. On that point, real quick, Haley, I don't mean to cut you off. The other match wasn't the main event, but was Taker, Triple H, Hell in a Cell, the end of an era.
Oh yeah.
That was not the main event of the show, but there is the chair shot. Just all those chair shots still make me cringe. So, Haley, back to you.
Yeah, like I said though, I feel like, that's like the huge debate is who the wrong person, obviously Brock Lesnar. A lot of people are still very picky on that defeat. He obviously defeated, broke the streak. So, I mean, that was like the huge debate that I wanted to talk to you guys about that. So, I still think it should have been Punk. I think they had a phenomenal match, and I thought the build-up was just amazing. And they played it out really well because they made Punk look like the most horrible human being possible, and that's exactly what a heel needs to be.
Yep, that's true.
In my
Here's a
opinion,
follow-up.
go ahead.
Would CM Punk still be with the WWE if he went over on that match?
Against Taker?
Would that have changed Punk's views?
I don't think so. I think there still was like so much that was bothering him. I don't think that was like the thing that was bothering him. I think that obviously the WrestleMania thing, him being in the main event, was just to add on to the top of all of what they have done to him. I think the injuries, I think the whole doctors, and there's still obviously controversy on that, whether that was true or not. The doctors, the WWE doctors are saying it's not true and everything like that, and they never told him to wrestle. But obviously they let Cena wrestle through multiple injuries, so obviously I can definitely agree with where Punk's coming from.
Well, I can actually also... There was an incident, we'll leave names out of it. Joe is familiar with what I'm talking about here. When you're a wrestling promoter, when you have guys like Punk, any worker in the back, if you can work through the injury, you better work through it, because if you don't, that affects your bottom line. And I'm sorry, there have been times, Joe, I'm sure you have, Chris, I'm pretty sure you have. I know I do it all the time with my knee. I work hurt. I have to. So, in my opinion, do I like CM Punk? Yes. Do I think he's a little bitch and a drama queen for it? Yeah. Do I blame the WWE doctors for maybe pushing him to wrestle? No. You have to earn that contract. You're not getting paid millions of dollars to sit in your ass and sit at home and do nothing. So, but do I think that Punk would still be with the company if he went over? No. I still think he would have picked up his ball and ran home with it. That's just my opinion.
Well, we're actually going to be talking about Punk a little bit more because part of the topics we're going to talk about is also Undertaker's streak, but we're going to get into that later.
I've been looking forward to that, Chris, and you damn well know it.
Oh, yeah. But the next thing I want to talk about is something that I know we're going to be talking about, actually enjoy talking about, is since we already talked about like matches that were as good as the main event or better, how about we talk about matches that we had high expectations but really let us down. Really
Can I start with
disappointing
that one?
WrestleMania.
Mind if I start? Mind if I start?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg.
Yep.
That match could have been epic. Just gone out and Joe, you know who I'm talking about. Haley, I know you do too. Brian Albertson and I go out there and we stiff the shiznit out of each other. That's what you could have done with Brock and Goldberg. I'm going, you're going to see the beast of WWE versus the beast of WCW, and what you got was the equivalent of a wet fart in church. It was just the most brutal abortion I've seen outside of Katie Vick.
Ow! No!
Ouch.
You know, I think I would have rather watched Katie Vick on a 3-hour replay, just a constant loop, than watch that match again. Austin tried to save it, and he couldn't. That is the glaring example of great on paper, stunk like shit.
Yeah.
Minor, what do you think, babe?
All right, what question are we talking about? Someone give me something to drink. I was a little sleepy.
Okay.
What are we talking about now?
Disappointing matches at WrestleMania. Matches that we had high hopes.
Disappointing match. I know a good one. Jerry the King Lawler versus Michael Cole at WrestleMania 27.
Yes.
The most stupidest WrestleMania match I've ever seen in WrestleMania history. It was dumb.
Wasn't that the Kiss My Foot stipulation? No,
Yeah.
that was the Kiss My Foot stipulation.
No, that was that.
I thought it was. Or was that the one on Raw?
No, I think
that was
that was a Extreme Rules.
All right, so yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they had two. Yeah, they had two pay-per-view matches. Oh my God.
That was when wasn't Austin the referee for that one too? It was supposed to be JBL, and then Austin got involved and did that, and that was another one Austin tried to save and couldn't.
Yep.
Well, the computer crowned Michael Cole the winner, so it was the computer's fault.
Michael Cole, and this is going to probably offend a couple people here, at least Michael Cole looked better in headgear than Kurt Angle did with the wig under it.
Oh, man, really?
No.
You're going to compare Michael Cole to Kurt Angle. Really?
He looked better in the headgear than Angle did. He really did.
You look like a freaking kid just came out of wrestling school.
Yeah, with not even enough knowledge to properly, apply a headlock. He was sitting there going, I'm just going to look like a bitch and float around like a butterfly and sting like a fairy. Like, damn.
Oh.
And then you had Jack Swagger in the corner, and Jack Swagger and Suffering Succotash was another guy that I really wish they'd push, but leave that alone.
Poor Jack Swagger.
Yeah.
Jack Swagger, the all-American. Oh yeah, American.
Or as the hashtag always says, "We the people."
Boo! Boo!
No, Joe. It's this. Weed the people.
There we go.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Haley, what do you think?
Obviously the most popular decision, John Cena versus The Rock. Both times, everyone thought it was going to be, I don't really know if everyone really thought it was going to be a great match, but Vince obviously thought it was going to be a great match. And that's why he obviously did it, and obviously both times, they didn't match up, and obviously the main event was obviously way better than both of those matches for both WrestleManias. So
I disagree to one point. I think most of the fans were happy to see The Rock back, but we all could tell that his heart wasn't in it, and that he just didn't have it in him to go anymore. We saw it at when we saw him come back at Survivor Series to tag with Cena. You could tell right there that WrestleMania was doomed. that match was just going to be the drizzling shits. Because Rock had the body of a god and the in-ring timing of a 2-year-old on speed.
Mm. He was blown up.
That was the thing. If you look at the way The Rock was in those matches, 5 minutes in, he's gassed out and looking like he wanted to say, "Bring it home." And Cena's sitting there going, no. And I have to, as much as I don't like John Cena, I have to give him props there because he kind of carried Rocky through both of them. Because Rock obviously did not take the time to get his cardio. You can do all the cardio exercises you want, but in-ring cardio and out-of-ring cardio, two completely different things. And Rock was built like, a brick shithouse, but had about as much air in him as a deflated balloon. So,
Hey, if you want to talk
I didn't expect much out of that.
What about the WrestleMania match between Big Show and the Japanese guy in the sumo wrestling match?
Oh,
That one is the best rematch ever.
Oh no!
We had to see his crack his neck in that one.
You know what? You know what? You could have taken Aki Bono out of that match and just had Big Show versus that Jeep again. It would have been better.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. If I wanted to see Big Show in a thong, which I never wanted to.
Hey! Whoa!
Listen. Hold on a minute.
I like your remarks, but when I say "ow," that means like that's a big, huge dig. I didn't say that I liked that match. And it was disturbing seeing Big Show in a diaper. I'm sorry, but I had to say it was a wrestling match. But God,
I was literally waiting with the way that Big Show looked in that man thong. He should have just come out to my milkshakes, bring all the boys to the yard, and it would have been better. Because I saw more of Big Show in that one match than I ever needed to, and this is going to be a little bit disturbing, but I'm pretty sure that I could have eaten a bottle of Viagra and wouldn't have had a reaction after I saw that, because it was just done.
Ew.
Well,
the comedy has begun.
Yeah, steering the back a little bit. I got a few ones I'm going to throw in. That same card that you're talking about, actually, no, the card before, where Big Show fought Floyd Mayweather, that main event of that card was the triple threat, Triple H, Randy Orton, and John Cena. That, I thought, that was another case where Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels stole the show in Ric Flair's retirement match, and that should have went on last, not that triple threat. Another one, Randy Orton versus Triple H at WrestleMania 25, which actually had a pretty damn good build, but they handcuffed them with the booking of the match. We're having it non-hardcore, just a straight match. That match was built with brutality, house invasions, handcuffing Stephanie McMahon to the ropes, all of that. So those two matches come to mind, and my last one, guys, is going to be controversial. I'm telling you this right now. You guys are not going to agree with this, but this is my own view. Shawn versus Bret Iron Man match. I don't think this is going to be...
Blasphemy!
I don't think... Watch the match back, Sterling. Most of that match rest holds. They don't pick up the pace in that match until the final 10 minutes and then the overtime period. And that particular period of the match is incredible. I would argue the Iron Man match that Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle had on SmackDown was much better than that. I thought it told a better story. It had more falls, so it got the crowd more invested. I actually thought Rowdy Piper and Goldust was more entertaining from that WrestleMania in Anaheim.
Hey, listen, man, the backlot brawl was good.
Yes,
you know what? Let's take what you just said about Bret and Shawn with the Iron Man match, and let's go for another Iron Man match that I thought was better than that. Yes, it had a shorter amount of time, but it was Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels on Raw, the 30-minute Iron Man match. Or, as controversial as this name is going to be, Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit, Ultimate Submission on SmackDown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because their work speaks for itself. You got to separate for the wrestler from the man. And doing that, of course, any Benoit Angle match stands the test of time, certainly.
the other thing I can look at with when you had brought up Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather, which was another shitfest, was you have to look at the fact when Floyd Mayweather, plastered Big Show's nose across his face and outside the ring. It should have been a lot better than it was. When you were saying about how Triple H versus Orton was handcuffed with everything, with like you said, with the home invasion, that should have been either street fight or no holds barred. Let him go. But you're right, it handcuffed it, and it definitely reduced what you could do with it. So I will agree there.
And then there was WrestleMania 13 as well, which obviously Austin and Brett stole the show. What was the main event? Undertaker and Sid?
Undertaker, Sid Vicious, that randomly became no DQ out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, clearly Steve Austin and Bret Hart stole the show in that one. And that was the double turn for Bret Hart to turn heel, which gave him a whole second life in WWE. And Austin, his ascension, of course, was culminating at WrestleMania 14.
Well, yeah, but see, the thing is, right before that, you could see the subtle, well, actually, it wasn't even so subtle, was when Bret was going nuts, like when he went on that profanity-laced tirade after, like, the cage match, when he was like, this is bullshit, this place sucks, and he was going off. So that double turn was beautiful, and it was also one of those times where the double turn was perfect because the crowd was sick of Bret, but the crowd wanted Austin. So they got the way to get him heel, get the heat on Bret, and turn Austin baby and get the crowd what they wanted. And we lost 2 at once. Son of a bitch.
Yep. I do agree with the Iron Man match, though. Well, I don't agree with it, but I know that a lot of people find that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, the Iron Man match, a lot of people do think that that match was not good. I don't really get why. I really enjoyed it. I've seen it over about 10 times. I never get sick of it. But they think just because there's no, falls or whatever in the first hour and that it's just, they can't, I guess, appreciate that. And I'm not saying Joe can't appreciate that. You have your own opinions why you didn't like that match. But that's why, I mean, it's just, you're not alone there, though, Joe. I have heard of a lot of people that don't like that match, so don't feel like you're...
I've also heard Aaron Ripp, the owner of NoDQ.com, share that view on his YouTube series that he does. So I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. I know it's a controversial view, but that's why we're doing this show. We can't agree on everything. And I do think, look, match...
Let's throw one more out there, Joe, that I'd like to get your thoughts on, and Chris, definitely you as well. Had the potential on paper to be okay and to set this person up was John Cena versus The Miz when The Rock got involved. That could have been, I hate The Miz personally in the ring. Hate him. I know there's a few people that love the guy. I've never been a fan of Mike Mizanin from when he came in till now. Never been a fan. That match could have been 10 times better than it was, but as I've watched it back a few times, I don't think Cena gave Miz anything to really work with. I think that Cena didn't want to do it and didn't think that Miz belonged where he was, and I kind of think in a way that Cena tried to bury Miz in that match. In my opinion.
There was, of course, the moment where Miz gets the concussion where he's posted on the railing on the outside, and Cena clotheslines him, and Miz gets a legit concussion. So that kind of put the wheels on the wheels came off right at that point, I feel, in the match.
Well, there was another concussion. Let's bring this up, and as this match, to me, it'll be brought up more in detail to me later. I was crying at the end of it, and I will not be ashamed to say that I shed tears. Was Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker when Taker got the concussion off the botched takedown. I think Taker recovered better, but then again, Taker had been doing this so damn long that he had the ring awareness to know where he was, even with his bell rung. Mm-hmm. Mizanin did not have that ring awareness at the point to keep going. Where with Taker, you knew he was hurt because you could see it, but it didn't exactly detract from what he was doing. When Miz got his bell rung pretty good, the match kind of it began that downward slope.
Yep, exactly.
And the person that you're tagged with, Joe, has given me a concussion, and I had to keep going. Exactly, the damn frosty forearms. So I know what it's like to work with a concussion and have to finish a match. I give Miz a lot of credit for doing it, but you can see that he wasn't at the point where he could have continued and made it believable with his bell rung. So.
Exactly. Right. All right. For me, some of you guys already mentioned some of the matches that were disappointing to me. One of them, some people would definitely agree with this. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon was to me very disappointing. Because I was a firm believer about Bret Hart that there was no such thing as a bad match when it came to Bret Hart. And to be fair, I understand that Bret Hart had a stroke. And also Vince McMahon, not him being the most uncoordinated person in the ring, you work what you work with. But what really got me...
Whoa. I'm going to counterpoint that because there are two matches, actually three, I can think of where Vince was not a trained wrestler, could barely do shit right, but let's take a look at three matches, and you can go whichever way you want with this.
Okay.
Austin versus Vince McMahon, the Steel Cage of St. Valentine's Day Massacre, was a good match. It was a strong match and entertaining. Then you can follow that up with Undertaker versus Vince McMahon, the Buried Alive match. It was actually entertaining. Vince bled like a stuck pig, but it was an entertaining match, and Vince gave everything he had. The third one that I'll make the point with, Vince McMahon versus Shawn Michaels. Mm-hmm. Vince and Shawn told a fantastic story.
Right.
So I can't say that's why I'm going to disagree with that. You work with what you can work with, because those three matches that Vince did.
How about Vince versus Ric Flair? How about Vince versus Hulk Hogan, which over-delivered, I thought. Vince dropping the leg drop off the ladder. How about Vince versus his own son Shane, which was an entertaining match. I thought over-delivered.
Right. I think it was WrestleMania 17, X7.
Yeah.
X7 was Vince versus Shane, which was an amazing match. Because that was the first time that Shane did the coast to coast with a trash can, which was awesome. But these are two guys that aren't consistent workers that put on a great match. But with Bret, I think it really was the stroke. It was his age. And as much as I was a Bret Hart fan when I met him backstage at a show, because my dad used to work at the Civic Center, so I got to meet a lot of the guys. And I've also, when Bret came up to XWA here a few years ago, I sat and talked, and I was backstage having a conversation with him and Foley and having a good time. Bret, at that point, had no place being in a ring.
No.
What they could have done was what they did when Taker and Bret were going to have their match on Raw when the Nexus came out and beat the hell out of Taker. They should have done it. It should have been done like on a Raw and then just cut it. Bret had no part being... So I don't think it's not that it delivered. I just don't think that Bret should have been allowed to be in the ring. How he passed the medical tests, I don't know.
And even one more point. Vince did have one more great match after that, guy. This is a forgotten match. Vince McMahon versus CM Punk on a Raw. This was about a year after that Mania, if not longer. And that match, I think was Vince's last match, was much better than that Bret the Hitman Hart match at WrestleMania 26.
I agree. I agree with that.
What it was for me for that match was I just felt that the beatdown that Bret Hart gave to Vince McMahon was dragged on way too long. And the way they started off where Vince McMahon bribed his family to turn against Bret Hart was kind of far-fetched. And I think that was one of the things that was kind of like, okay, this is not believable. Why would the Hart family or the entire Hart family turn on Bret Hart? You know what I mean? And just that whole beatdown, like if it cut down to at least maybe 5 minutes, I would have been fine with it. But I know the story was like there's been like how many years since the Montreal school job at that time? Like over 10 years. People can say, well, that's over 10 years of pent-up frustration that he always wanted to unleash to Vince McMahon. But we all know what happened in the back, that he punched Vince McMahon in the face, as far as I know. So in a way, to me, it's like it was way too much of a beating in that match, and that's why I didn't really wasn't a big fan of it. Another match I was not a big fan of. People will definitely agree with me on this. Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 18 seconds of this.
Yeah. I was so pissed off because this was actually the first time we saw Daniel Bryan coming down to WrestleMania defending the World Heavyweight Championship. And I was happy. It was I was actually a big, huge Daniel Bryan fan. I was really looking forward to seeing him at the grandest stage of them all. I said, finally, his dreams come true. He's not at a pre-show like he was a year before. That turned into a battle royal, which I don't know why they did that. But finally get to see him work at WrestleMania. And then he gave the kiss to AJ. I turned away to talk to somebody. Then all of a sudden I hear...
Bro kicked in the face.
I said, what do you mean bro kick? And then 1, 2, 3, I say, what?
Well,
That's
Chris,
it?
I remember you and I think we had done a show shortly after that, and you and I had sat down and had a discussion about this. That I'll bring up ancient history, making me feel old. Damn. I actually had said to you that I thought that was the end of Daniel Bryan. I thought that was his burial. And for him to come back to where he is now, good on him. But that was definitely one of those matches that if you would allowed those two to go out there and actually work a match and not give, a Warlord Royal Rumble appearance to him pretty much, or a Santino Marella Royal Rumble appearance, you had 18 seconds. Now, but there's two sides to that. Actually, I'll say there's three sides to that. I'm really sorry. I'm going to look at it from three different perspectives, and you guys can give your takes on it. The first way I'm going to look at it, you buried Daniel Bryan. Second off, you buried the World Heavyweight title. You completely took what it meant away from it. Three, when you have somebody like Sheamus go over in 18 seconds for a World's Championship, what does that really say about Sheamus in the world with the world title? Does it make him a credible world champion? You've already shit on the belt. You shit on Daniel Bryan. And what did it do for Sheamus? Nothing.
No.
That's a great point.
Good came out of
I
it.
feel like when you look back, Josh, at the aftermath of that moment, Sheamus and the world title were the big losers of that. Because people shit on Sheamus like they currently shit on Roman Reigns and like they shit on Batista last year. Sheamus was the original scapegoat for Daniel Bryan fans to rebel again. And let's face it,
how long did it take for Sheamus to come back from that? Even
he still
Exactly.
He still
hasn't come back to where he was from the build-up to that, because I think at that point he'd already beat Cena for the title twice and had the two WWE title runs, which is when Sheamus was as hot as he could be. Then you did the WrestleMania match, which just basically turned the lights out on him, and since then he has never been the same. I'm looking forward to this return to hopefully get him back where he was, because like you just said, and I will add to your point, it did nothing for Sheamus but derail him. And he's still suffering the after effects years later.
Daniel Bryan's even mentioned this. Daniel Bryan and Sheamus are actually pretty tight in real life, and no one was more upset than Sheamus that their first match got bumped into a pre-show battle royal. But like we said, Sheamus was the one who took the most heat from this, from the fans and from his character. Daniel Bryan, if anything, turned chicken shit into chicken salad, and the Yes movement gave rise that following night on Raw, guys. You saw the return of Brock Lesnar. You saw the fans hijack the show with the Yes movement. Daniel Bryan was a heel, and they were so behind him with yes, yes, yes. That night, the night after Mania, not Raw, was when the Yes movement began, and I think it backfired, and it turned Daniel Bryan into the star that he is today. It backfired. So again, give Daniel Bryan a survive it.
I might be skipping ahead here real quick, but there's another part of WrestleMania that we've yet to really get into, and I don't know if, Chris, if this is something you had thought about or you were going to do, the Raw after WrestleMania. How big that has become.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Think about that. There are people now that you look at WrestleMania, and yes, it is the show of shows. Sorry, I was rolling a cigarette. But the show of shows, but the Raw afterwards almost seems to have as much hype, as much build-up, and as much anticipation and excitement as the night before at WrestleMania.
Hmm.
And yes, because you had just said, it did begin the Yes movement. It did bring Daniel Bryan to the next level. But what happened with Sheamus that night? Nothing.
Nothing.
So,
Nothing at all. And in
Exactly.
a way,
Good,
oh,
Chris.
sorry. All right, but in a way, like you mentioned, like the Raw after WrestleMania, it's kind of like a season premiere of
Yes.
the new
Yeah.
season in a way.
because
And
everything that finishes up at Mania, you start new the next night. And
Yeah.
if you look at what happens at WrestleMania, whoever the big people were that got the best reaction, they go out the next night. And like you said, it's a season premiere. It's the new stuff that comes out of WrestleMania. And WrestleMania obviously is a can't miss. You can't really miss it every year because there's so much that happens, so much fanfare, so much oomph that goes into it. But the Raw after has just as much oomph because you can't wait to see what the next chapter for these people whose storylines just wrapped up the night before. Well, what are they going to do next? So in my opinion, WrestleMania doesn't really end till Raw ends the next night. That
I
is
agree.
WrestleMania.
Yep.
And adding to the point I said earlier, where WrestleMania week has become so big, that Raw after Mania is the exclamation mark of that entire experience, of the Hall of Fame, of the Mania itself, of all the access. That Raw after Mania is where the fans, the hardcore fans, can express themselves. The good, the bad, and the ugly that came out of WrestleMania. And that's the true platform. And it's a smaller arena, so that sound's going to bounce around, unlike the stadiums where the sound goes up and doesn't bounce around. That's where you really get to experience what the fans thought of WrestleMania that following Raw.
Okay. There's one little thing I want to talk about. There's something that happened at WrestleMania that was sort of controversial, and there's a lot of urban legends to this. And I was gonna have Haley lead off because we talked about this, and she wanted to talk about it a little bit. It's about WrestleMania 9. At the end of WrestleMania 9, we all saw that Hogan won the championship from Yokozuna after he beat Bret Hart, which to me was a really great match. It was one of the great matches I've seen at WrestleMania 9 between Yokozuna and Bret Hart. All of a sudden, we're going to give the spotlight back to Hulk Hogan and have him win the championship. You and I, Haley, talked about it a little bit. You said you want to get your feelings about that. What are your thoughts about Hogan winning the
Okay,
title?
well, first of all, I feel like, obviously, I can't stand Hogan. That's number one. Number two is...
You can't stand
Number
Hogan,
two is-
brother, but Hulk Hogan is the professional wrestling brother.
Number two is, I don't understand why they would give him the title back when his era is over. Like, the whole point of this was to obviously show new talent. That's what they need to do, is show new talent. And I felt like Hogan's time was obviously slowing way down, And it's WrestleMania 9. His time's getting close to an end now. And obviously he still wants to wrestle. I don't know what's wrong with that guy.
You know what it really is, Haley and Joe, Chris, Michael? I'd love to get your guys' take on this. If you look at what happened shortly after that, Hogan would drop the title shortly after, right to WCW. I think that was Vince trying to keep Hogan around. It wasn't meant to bury Yoko, because, Yoko, whatever you think about him, Yokozuna was one of the best big men of all time.
Yeah.
For somebody who weighed that much, the way he moved in that ring, he was amazing. Rest in peace. But I think that what it really was it was Vince trying to get Hogan to either finish his career in WWF or sweeten the pot to make him stay, because I think that WCW, he'd already gotten wind that WCW was making offers at him. So I think that's what that was. It was a poorly executed bullshit idea, but I think that was what Vince was going for, was to try to get Hogan to stay. So Your thoughts?
I can
Yeah, guys,
definitely agree to that.
Yeah, I think
I
so
think
too.
that's, yeah, really good points. Um, I don't know. I feel like you can take this in so many different ways, but I mean, obviously a lot of people were upset about this, with the Hogan obviously taking the title again. But I mean, I just feel like if they were going to do that, why still give him the title? And I mean, yeah, to keep him around and everything like that too. But I feel like they could have did something different to lead into that. I feel like they
They
could have
could have.
taken a different route.
They absolutely could have, but you also have to look at most of that WrestleMania where we saw things that should not have occurred, like JR and a toga. Um, we can
oh,
also we can
that
also
was
we can also go with the match that I try to forget ever happened, and it still makes me cringe and have nightmares. Was Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez. So
oh.
that entire WrestleMania, for the most part, I try to forget it ever happened.
Sean and Tatanka was a controversial one too.
It was, but you. So really, Joe and Chris and Mike and Haley, I'm pretty sure you guys can all agree. WrestleMania 9 was kind of one of those. You could have done that as a Raw and gotten away with it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I
Like
like the
like
concept
I
of
said,
WrestleMania 9. Like, not necessarily JR Natoga, but in Caesar's Palace with the kind of Roman kind of feel to it. I like the idea of it. Then we get to the show itself, and obviously, I mean, Tatanka and Sean, that was supposedly Tatanka was supposed to go over, and Sean played politics until he went over on that. That's the story that at least comes out of that, and Tatanka still has bitterness over that to this day, from what I've heard. You know, there's all kinds of things. How about the fact that the Macho Man Randy Savage was relegated to commentary when he should have been on that card, and he probably should have been wrestling Shawn Michaels? It's been well documented that he had the idea to do one final program with Shawn Michaels to top what he
yep.
did with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and I think it would have given Shawn Michaels' track record, and that never happened. And that may be the true injustice of that WrestleMania that no one ever talks about. And Randy Savage was out of the company soon thereafter. As far as Hogan goes, Hogan did not go to WCW right after this. That is a myth. Hogan was doing the TV show. I forget the
That's
name of
true.
it.
Thunder
He
in
was
Paradise.
for a year.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think you're right, Josh, in the fact that Vince was trying to appease him one final time. Knowing that he was going to do the TV show, I think he looked at it like Piper. Oh, Piper always comes back. Piper will go do movies for 2 years, but Piper comes back. And I thought he felt the same way about Hogan, that, all right, let him go for a year or two. We'll build up Shawn and Brett, and Hogan can come back at that point. And I think that's why they did it. Now, my biggest flaw in the execution of that is how they portrayed Bret Hart. Now, not only did he lose the match to Yokozuna, and like you said, Chris, a very good match. I thought it put Yoko over well as one of the best big men of his era. But to have Bret just kind of like give the blessing to Hogan before that match, like, all right, go do what I couldn't do, I thought it weakened Bret, if anything.
In a way, yeah.
Sorry, folks,
Definitely.
on the debut here on the Wrestling Throwdown. Say hi, Abel.
And let's not forget, Bret and Hogan, another big controversy. Hogan never really wanted to work Bret, and they never even wrestled a one-on-one match, with the exception of one time on WCW Nitro, which was a kibosh in and of itself.
Yep.
But yeah, one of the other also urban legends I've heard about Hogan winning that title is that I've heard from people that say that Hogan held up WrestleMania and threatened that he won't show up WrestleMania unless he won the title. Have anyone heard about that rumor before?
Doesn't
I
surprise
actually
me.
have not. Yeah, I've
What?
never heard that one before.
No?
No.
Yeah, some people have. It's like I said, it's one of those urban legends that they talk about. Oh, Hogan held up WrestleMania 9 if he didn't win the title, that he wasn't going to show up or something like that. But there was a lot of urban legends I've heard. I mean, not a lot of legends that we should believe in, but that's one of them. But
Well,
what
to
you
be
said,
honest, would I put it past Hogan to do something like that? No. No, I wouldn't.
All right.
I guess
But
the
what?
question is, does history repeat itself with Brock Lesnar this year?
Oh God, he better not. Lesnar better not.
Oh, I have got opinions for days on that one. Do I see it happening? Do I think Brock is an egomaniac enough to do it? Yep.
Yep.
Do I think
Yep.
that Vince will allow it to happen? I don't honestly think that if Brock really wanted to do it, that Vince could do anything to stop it. I legit think that Brock would shoot on whoever they sent out there and just do what he wants to do.
Because I've heard the rumor that Brock may no-show WrestleMania completely, and they may put the title on Rollins and say he cashed in without any cameras there, even though we live in the era of camera phones. So if this happened anywhere, how did someone not catch it on film, given the fact that we're in 2015 in the era of camera phones?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if you see somebody as a body double for Lesnar, if that had to happen.
They're going to Paul Walker it?
They might, you know. It would just be... They just signed a kid who has about the same build as Lesnar, is jacked as all hell. So if something like that had to go down, they'd probably, you know, Photoshop some tattoos on him, and there you go.
Baron Corbin's going to come out, Brock Lesnar.
Oh, God.
I wouldn't be surprised. All right, let's switch gears now. We always heard about the whole moniker of Mr. WrestleMania. And we always associate that with Shawn Michaels. But I feel there are other people who are considered Mr. WrestleMania. One of them, of course, in my opinion, is Hulk Hogan. And the other is The Undertaker.
Yes.
So I feel there are three Mr. WrestleManias.
Well, see, this...
I'd like to get your thought on what do you think about that? Like, why you think Hogan, Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker will be considered as the guys who can hold the moniker as Mr. WrestleMania?
Hogan carried WrestleMania for years on his back. You know, the main event for many, many years, you knew Hogan was main. Didn't matter who it was going against, Hogan was headlining. Shawn Michaels, from a performance standpoint, there was no one who could top him. Undertaker was WrestleMania, and this year, which I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about it, this WrestleMania is going to be something, a very unique animal. This is the first WrestleMania without a streak match. Except for WrestleMania 2000, and I believe WrestleMania, I think it was 95. It was WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 10 and WrestleMania 2000, Taker was out with injuries, so I don't count those two. But this is the first year that Taker is performing, and the streak is not a factor. It's not on the line. Because if you look at the people that, when I look at WrestleMania, I'll say since about WrestleMania 20. Let's go from 20 on. So we'll look at the past 11 years. WrestleMania 20 was the big anticipated return of the Dead Man. You had Undertaker versus Orton, which was a great match. You had Undertaker versus Edge, another amazing match. Undertaker versus Batista, when Taker actually pulled a decent match out of Batista. And then you take into consideration the back-to-back with Triple H, the back-to-back with Shawn Michaels that were just amazing. This is the first year that we have Taker that the streak's not there. So that kind of diminishes that, in my opinion. But you have the match that meant just as much, if not more than the main event for Taker as Mr. WrestleMania. Hogan, who main evented every WrestleMania until he was gone. And then you have Shawn Michaels, who put on the best performance at WrestleMania, regardless who he was working. So that's my take on those three Mr. WrestleManias and what they're the myth or the aura that surrounds them when it comes to that title. And bless you, Abel.
What do you think, Haley?
Obviously, well, Undertaker because of his streak. That's obviously a given. That's not even to be explained.
I think I did well enough with that.
Yeah, I'll let you explain that. That's your man. um,
Well, Jesus,
and then,
he's so cute, and I've ripped him off for my gimmick for years. God.
you're such a weirdo. And obviously Shawn, who's obviously my favorite of all time. He is the greatest of all time. He is the greatest in-ring performer. No one can top him. I don't care what anybody says because you're wrong. Shawn is best.
We do have a new one coming up, though. We do have a new one coming up. And I'm going to put a lot of stock into this. If they pull the trigger, Dolph Ziggler is the next Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, they keep messing up with him, though. Like, he has a big mouth, though. Dolph does have a big mouth. He really does.
Shawn never kept his yap trap shut.
Yeah, but Vince likes Shawn. I mean, there's a difference with Dolph. Dolph's not in the main event. Like, if Dolph was like, like the big guy, and if Vince was cool with Dolph could say anything he wants, but Dolph's not even there yet. Even though he needs to be, he should be. Obviously, and Ryback's another one. There's a couple of guys that obviously, and Alex Riley, he's lucky he's still back in wrestling. All of them just have big mouths.
Ryback is nothing more than a walking steroid endorsement. When he's going, feed me more. Dude, we can't put any more needles in your ass. It would kill you if we gave you another dose.
Ouch.
Shots fired. Sorry.
Wow.
Miner, what do you think of this?
Talk about a shit.
Yeah, Mr. WrestleMania, I have to say, has to be Shawn Michaels and Taker no matter what, and also Hogan added in there with it. To me, I don't know mostly about the WrestleManias, but when they did the Undertaker and Triple H, when they did the first time with Triple H and the Undertaker, why did they not use one of the matches that Taker and Triple H had? And I can't remember what WrestleMania those two used to fought. Could we say that Taker's 3-0 against Triple H?
Of course,
because he had a match with Triple H at one of the WrestleManias. If you were going to build Taker and Triple H, why did they not add that? Why did they not add that match into it?
Because
to build it up, saying, "Oh, okay, we know they wrestled at WrestleMania 17. They fought against each other. We had the badass Taker."
You have to look at the fact that when you look at Taker now, all right, this is what I'm going with you, and I'm pretty sure that all three of the others can jump in. Two of the others. God, I can't count this evening. I'm sure Joe, Haley, you guys can jump in. Chris, I know you're gonna have your points on this. So there's three. Jesus Christ, I'm doing okay here. Undertaker's American Badass character is something I think Vince McMahon doesn't like to bring up. Because, so that's why that wasn't brought up. Also, if you look at WWE's booking, Minor, if it happened 2 years ago, it never happened before. It's a whole new concept. This has never happened. The WWE creative committee has this awful propensity to recycle shit more than BFI. It's they recycle everything, and they expect us to believe it's brand new. So that's why. So you have to look at the fact they don't like bringing up the Undertaker's American Badass character. They do it begrudgingly in DVD history because you can't exactly write out 3 years of the guy's career. So that was one of the reasons why. You also couldn't bring it up because it was supposed to never have happened before, and that's the way they built it up. And even though us longtime wrestling fans knew, been there, done that, seen it. Great match, by the way.
Yeah.
So I wish they had brought it up, but it's more or less WWE. It happened years ago. It never happened. We can pretend it never happened because most of what they're targeting people who are about 10 to 12 years old. They're targeting little kids that don't know about the history of that point. And the WWE Network hadn't been thought about yet, so the kids couldn't take and look up Undertaker versus Triple H to find it. So it was their way of just erasing history and writing it the way they wanted for that one match. Well, two matches.
And that match itself, that was my favorite of the 3 Triple H Undertaker matches. It wasn't about the streak. It was about the story. It's about Triple H as a villainous heel destroying Undertaker's motorcycle and doing all these dastardly things to Undertaker, who had been injured, and Triple H is ascended as the top guy in the company, and Undertaker was trying to take that spot back. And that's what that match was about. Let's not forget, guys, the streak really wasn't important until about WrestleMania 2021 when they really started acknowledging it.
It was 21 when he faced Randy Orton because Randy Orton wanted to be the one to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I will never forget the visual they did with the video on the Tron of 21-0 and they turned the 0 into Orton. That was when it came up. So...
So there was a 10-year period there that the streak wasn't even acknowledged. He was undefeated, but we didn't even think about that. It was more about the storyline and the booking. That's why, in a way, I'm glad the streak's over, because Bray Wyatt and Undertaker can be more about the story and about this brash young punk who's trying to be the new Undertaker, calling him out, than about the streak itself.
Whoa, Joe. Let me cut you off right there for a minute. Now, there's something that I'd like to bring up. I know I'm probably jumping around here a bit, but Chris, I really can't wait to get your thoughts on this because it's been way too long since you and I have sat down and discussed wrestling. I look at what they're doing, and I had said this to Haley a couple weeks ago. They're building Bray Wyatt as the replacement for The Undertaker. Luke Harper is being built as the replacement for Kane. So you're looking at it that way. But there's also rumors going around that the night after WrestleMania, they're going to begin the build for the final match of Taker's career and Sting's, and they're going to begin to build Undertaker versus Sting. Now, would you rather have Taker do the honors to Bray Wyatt and then go over on Sting, or go over on Bray Wyatt and have a double count out so neither one of them really goes over and it's, a draw next year?
In my opinion, this is the type of match I feel like whether Undertaker goes over or not, the true winner of that match is going to be Bray Wyatt. He's the one that's going to get a lot out of this. Because
the cool thing is, and Joe, I want your take on this as well, and Chris, I can't wait to hear your thoughts. The way that they built towards this match, with Bray Wyatt doing all those cryptic promos but never saying the name Undertaker until Fastlane, which I hated Fastlane personally, but Bray Wyatt coming out to the Undertaker's entrance with the music, the casket, and the Druids was amazing. You could not have booked that any better if you tried. That was the ultimate mind game. Now, Undertaker is the master of mind games for WWE. Bray Wyatt played the ultimate trump card using his entrance against him. The build for this match has been beyond anything WWE's done in years. So I agree with you, Chris. It doesn't matter who goes over in this match, so I'd love to see Taker go over. Bray Wyatt is going to get not just the rub. He could literally, after this match with Taker next Sunday, he could step right into the WWE title picture and no one would question it. Because you worked dead man. No matter who it is, let's take a look at that for a minute. Let's look at everyone who's worked Taker, with the exception of a couple, that in recent years, let's say since the streak actually started meaning something, when they started really putting it over. Taker and Orton. Orton went on to huge success.
Yep.
Mark Henry went on to huge success. Batista built from that match. Edge was established as the main event talent. Then you had the Triple H and Shawn Michaels matches, which were the Attitude Era revisited and finally put to rest. Then you had the CM Punk match, which honestly was a great match. And Punk was established even more from that. So Bray Wyatt is going to get just launched into outer space from this thing. And it's already to the point where I don't care, for the most part, what happens on Raw. But I can't miss the Bray Wyatt promos building up to this match. So your thoughts on that?
The way I look at it with this, with the match between Bray Wyatt and Undertaker, and I actually discussed it with someone else. Some people thought that, what's the point of having this match in the first place? The streak is over, and what can Bray Wyatt gain out of this? And I said, he can gain a lot out of this. Like, one of the things I mentioned is that, for one, Bray Wyatt is trying to destroy the spirit. Storyline-wise, destroy the spirit of the Undertaker. Because like people were saying, like, well, Lesnar destroyed him at WrestleMania 30. So yeah, but how many times have a lot of wrestlers destroyed the Undertaker's body, and then he always comes back?
Let's
Like,
go
if
with
you-
this. The Royal Rumble, when they did the Yokozuna Undertaker casket match, when Taker
Yeah.
rose to the heavens, the promo was, the spirit of the Undertaker lives within the soul of all mankind, which is basically saying that you can't kill the spirit of the Undertaker. And with
Right.
this match, it's one of those moments where I lose the fact that I'm a worker, I lose the fact that I have years of knowledge inside the business, and for the first time in a long time, I'm sitting there watching these promos going, you're making a big mistake. Don't hunt what you can't kill.
Right.
And don't tempt the dead man. Because then I look at pictures I've seen of the way that Taker has gotten himself physically ready for this match. The boy is ready to go.
Mhm.
And what you were just saying, well, now the streak's over. What is it really about? Undertaker doesn't, as much as I love the streak does not define the Phenom.
Thank you.
That's right.
His career
Right.
is what defines him. And he has had one of the most, if not the most stellar careers with a singular gimmick. He's the greatest gimmick. Yes, Hogan, but Hogan, is just like that anyway. Undertaker is the greatest gimmick in the history of professional wrestling. The streak was a beautiful bonus to that. It was an addition to that. But the streak does not define Mark Calloway. It does not define the character of The Undertaker. So,
In other words, Undertaker put over the streak. Not the
The
streak.
Undertaker put over the streak, but take the streak away. Let's take the 21-0, 21-1 away.
Yep.
Let's take the streak completely away. Without the streak, Undertaker still had a fantastic career, title runs, great matches,
Yep.
in a lengthy career that will never be duplicated.
Nope.
No.
I think you guys all have great points on Shawn, Hogan, and Undertaker. It would be hard for me to even add to any of your points because you guys articulated it so well. But I'm going to throw a few other names out there that were not mentioned as potential people who I feel should be in the discussion at least as Mr. WrestleMania. The first one is the Macho Man Randy Savage, who I feel before Shawn Michaels was the original worker who, we can go back to Savage Steamboat. We can go back to Savage Warrior. We can go back to Savage and $1 Million Man. And all these matches were show stealer caliber type matches. Macho Man was the original entity to do that. I feel like Shawn Michaels piggybacked off what Macho Man did.
Well,
and took
see,
it
to add to your point really quick, Joe, I don't mean to cut you off. Let's take that for a second. I will actually agree with you. Savage was one of those guys, just like Shawn Michaels, just like Undertaker. They could pull a great match out of anybody they got in the ring with. Ric Flair was the same way. It didn't matter who they were working, they were pulling a good match out of them. Except with the exception of Giant Gonzalez, because nobody could pull a match out of that thing. But let's take a look at let's go with Shawn and Kevin Nash. Not Nash was a decent worker, but every time those two got in the ring, great match. Diesel couldn't really do much with a lot of other guys. Let's go with like you said, Savage and Warrior. There really wasn't a lot to work with Ultimate Warrior. I was a big fan of his when I was a little kid, that and Taker, obviously. But Savage pulled a great match out of him. You take, let's say, Undertaker pulling matches out of Mark Henry, pulling matches out of Batista, finding what they had to offer and pulling it out of them, carrying them through it if need be, but they could get it over. And I think you're right. Savage was the original one who could do that. Savage didn't care about getting his shit in. He didn't care about who went over. It was about the performance, just like with Shawn. So I agree with that completely.
And the other name, we may reluctantly throw this in, but we kind of got it. Haley touched on this at the beginning of this video. John Cena. For over a decade, WrestleMania has been built around this man. We may not agree with it. We may not like half the matches he has put out. But WrestleMania as a whole, for over a decade, has been built around this man, and we got to give the devil his due in that regard.
See, I will go to one of your prior points to that when you were talking about Hogan and Andre. Hogan and Andre filled the stadium to have all these other guys work on. Cena, for the past 10 years, is the one who puts that ass every 18 inches. Yes, you have other matches that people are going to see, but women and children flock to John Cena. So therefore, I agree with that Cena is the one at Mr. WrestleMania, if you want to say that he's the one who's main eventing, he's the big drawing power of it. Right. So I agree.
And he is now longer than Hogan's run was on top in the WWF by a few years now. So, I mean, longevity, I feel, speaks volume. 15-time champion as well. His work speaks for itself, whether you like the guy or not. So those are my two that I got to throw in addition to the three.
You do have to go with the 15-time champion thing with Cena. I hope to God he does not tie and or break Ric Flair's record. I think that's something that should stay.
It's going to happen.
Stop. It's just a number.
Chris loves Cena. You can't.
I know, and that's one of the reasons why I have to keep Chris as one of those outskirts friends because he's a Cena fan, and I have to kind of keep distance with a cross, a clove of garlic, and a steak. Go and get away from you, vampire. I love you, Chris. Don't get me wrong.
Let's look at Ric Flair's title reigns. Are you seriously going to compare Ric Flair's title reigns to John Cena's title reigns? I mean, look at the longevity he has, and look at John Cena's. Most of John Cena's title reigns, he was a champion of a brand. Not the company, but a brand.
True.
And you look at Flair, he was a champion of the whole company. Not just a company, but a company that was
worldwide.
A huge worldwide company.
Because you're right. Yes, Cena was the champion.
Go ahead.
Okay, to go with your point real quick, and I have to give the devil his due. Sorry, I can barely do this without throwing up. If you look at Cena, Cena is the WWE champion. He's the champion of the company of the WWE. When Ric Flair was the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, that title was defended in different promotions. It could have been a small little indie thing. It was defended in Japan, but not in the confines of, let's say, Mid-Atlantic or Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was defended all over the place. So yes, Ric Flair was a true, legitimate World Heavyweight Champion, where Cena was just the champion of the WWE. Yeah. But I still say the numbers.
At that point, to counter your point, had become a global entity and had purchased all its competition, so there really wasn't any other, no disrespect to TNA or Ring of Honor or New Japan or anywhere else, but there really wasn't any other championships that meant as much as the ones that John Cena has been carried over the past 10 years.
Very true.
In the modern era.
But the thing is, you have to admit, you look at what Ric Flair did. Ric Flair took it to say, he would have defended it in like a Ring of Honor. He would have defended it in a smaller company, whereas John Cena defended it only within the company that he's employed by and under contract to. So it's a completely different animal in a way, because Cena's never gone to say TNA.
It's still Disney. It's still Coke. It's still the NFL. It's not the AFL. It's not the SFL. It's the NFL.
But you see the WWE Championship being defended in, yes, it's defended in other countries, but not against guys from outside promotions that are coming in to do it. Like Ric Flair would have defended against the Great Muta, from coming from Japan to an NWA company as an outside company coming to try to take that championship, but you don't see WWE doing that. So it is a completely different animal. So
I think WWE, if they were willing to do business with other companies and bring in the Bullet Club as an invasion angle or something else, I think that would be a breath of fresh air in wrestling. But I think the WWE is too focused on their own product to put over the outside. Although I do think it would help business if they were to actually bring in an AJ Styles and have the IWGP champion versus the the WWE champion or something like that. I think it would be great. I don't know if they'd ever do it.
The WWE is very self-focused. If you look at the way that they go, and Triple H has actually hinted on this and said this before, and other interviews have brought it up, wrestling world does not exist outside of the WWE to the WWE writers. Whatever happens out there, it happens out there. It didn't really happen. They do their own thing. So I don't think the WWE would be willing to do that because it would take the shine off the WWE. We saw them try to do that, and it actually worked well in like '97 when ECW did the invasion, and it was a separate company invading.
Yep.
But that was the one and well, actually, and they also did the NWA thing for a little while, where Jim Cornette was bringing in NWA guys. But that didn't last very long before it became the WWF show again. So.
The only hope we can have of this happening is NXT, where they actually do acknowledge guys' past. You look at Sammy and Kevin and other situations, and maybe the future of this company, maybe they could look to that. But with Vince still in charge, that's not going to happen on the main roster. Maybe NXT, but not the main roster.
You know what? But seeing as you brought it up, and I kind of was staying mute on this, well, very mute on this point. This is not discussing WrestleMania, but in a way it is. Would you like to see the NXT Championship defended on WrestleMania itself? Not the pre-show, but WrestleMania itself, because I, for one, would love to see it.
I think it'd be showcasing your young talent. You had Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens. Finn Balor's entrance on that WrestleMania stage. I think they wouldn't do it, guys, but they'd be too scared that Balor and Owens, or whatever matchup they put out there, would make the WWE talent look too shitty. So that's why the reason I don't think they did it.
Well,
I did hear
this, Joe.
Going to be one NXT guy, guys. There is going to be one NXT guy in WrestleMania. They're doing a battle royal, and the winner of that battle royal will have an entry in the Andre the Giant battle royal. Whether it's Neville, whether it's Sammy, one of those guys is going to be in the Andre the Giant battle royal. So there will be at least one NXT representation. Furthermore, I'd love women's title defending at WrestleMania with Sasha and Charlotte or whoever. I think that'd be great too.
Well, let me throw this out there really quick, because if there's one match that I would love to see that would be technically NXT, and I want to get your guys' take on, obviously he still has dates left with Ring of Honor, but as you were discussing before we went on air, he has officially said he will be going there, even though it's not really been released yet. Samoa Joe versus Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Put the NXT strap on the line, let him go, and watch as, I'm not going to lie, I would not, this is going to sound disgusting, but that is a match that I damn near have to fap to. Because that would just be an amazing, you can't. And
the fact that they never fought in the Indies. Everybody's fought in the Indies. They never did, to my knowledge. Maybe you guys could correct me on that, but Joe was in TNA once Kevin Owens was established himself in Ring of Honor, and unless they wrestled at a little indie show that I'm not aware of, they've never wrestled.
They have not, to my knowledge as well. But let's take a look at, I know you guys are, some of you are wrestling historians. I've linked the match on Wrestling Throwdown at one point for a person that I cannot stand to watch it and maybe learn something. It was Samoa Joe versus Low Ki in Ring of Honor. They had a brutal, stiff match. I was on hand for Ring of Honor. Say what?
Fight without honor.
Yep, the Fight Without Honor, which, Chris, you have to admit, that was a fantastic match to watch. Then we can put, when I was at a Ring of Honor show, I was actually able to attend one when it came to Providence. And it was Eddie Kingston versus Kevin Steen.
I was there for that. Oh.
You were there, so you know the match, Joe. That was brutal. So you put those two out there on a WrestleMania, which I would particularly love to see. And you're right, no one's coming close to that, because those two, for a WrestleMania, there would be no stopping those two. They could break their arms and legs, and they would still go. So I agree with you, Joe, that I think that it would, if they were to put it on WrestleMania, it would potentially slaughter their main roster talent. Mike, I saw you shaking your head. What's going on, man? Come on, Miner.
Slaughtering the main roster. Who gives two? I'm sorry, I'm gonna excuse my French. Fuck the main roster. With NXT the way it is right now, I bet you $100 that freaking Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe would kill the main roster. Main
Absolutely.
roster, you might want to sit on your rocking chairs and watch two real indie professionals go at it in a ring at WrestleMania. This is one reason why there's one thing I need to start doing is do a petition. Hashtag NXT for WrestleMania 32. And I bet you I'll get so many sign-ins, and I bet you I'll get so many hates. Well, you know what, haters? Here's to you. I really don't care. I want NXT at WrestleMania because that's what I predicted on my shows. If you can see my shows on my channel, where I talked about putting NXT, putting that NXT World title, putting the NXT Women's title. Fuck the Divas title. Sorry, I don't care about Divas. Let me get my boob job. I'm Marie. Let me get my boob job. Oh wait, I'm Nikki Bella. Let me get my boob job. Who really gives two fucks about this? I think about the women's division that's in NXT. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing with the tag team. They put the belts on Wesley Blake and Murphy right now. Bye-bye Lucha Dragons. Don't need them assholes. Look at the Ascension. Bye-bye. Don't need them. Look what they're putting them up against too now. They're putting them against Enzo Amari and Big Cass. There's a lot of other tag teams establishing right now.
That's my
in NXT.
I don't get what's the hate for Enzo Amari. I don't get it.
If you took,
I love them.
Let's go back to Miner's point. If you took the NXT roster right now, and if you really wanted to do it, book a full WrestleMania of just NXT talent, and you would have a show that you couldn't miss.
Nope.
Damn right. They'll be like, oh shit, let me get tickets for that. Yeah.
Exactly, and
the
like,
fact that Brock versus Roman, I don't want a ticket for that match.
Well, the thing is, I mean, look at the NXT roster really is putting the main roster to abysmal shame.
To rest.
And I kind of see that in a way as Triple H's power play to say, hey, Vince, just let me do this. Because Triple H has full control. Paul Levesque has full control over NXT. And he's booking NXT the way he's booking it in a way that wrestling fans want to see wrestling.
There you go.
There's very little promo, very little scripting. Here's your bullet points, go out there, work a match. I had a discussion with a Raw review with Miss Haley over there when we were talking about the Divas division. And if the Divas, like, let's say the Bella Twins are on TV, I gotta go take a shit, I gotta go do my dishes, I gotta do something other than watch my TV. If
John, I want to cut you off, but my phone's overheating, so I may lose connection. You guys take it home strong. WrestleMania 30, got the preview this week on the Wrestling Throwdown. Stay tuned to the Strike Zone this week. We got Patriots play-by-play. Bob Stoshi calling in. Thank you to everybody who came to RITW yesterday, including Mr. Josh Jones. It was a great crowd. Chris Sterling, thank you for involving me in this project. It's been my honor to be involved.
I will say this much. For the next RICW show, I'll see you there.
See you at the matches, brother. See you at the matches.
Well, unfortunately, we did lose Joe, and that's going to kind of put a little kibosh on things here. But, Chris, I think you and I can go back and forth with this. Like I was just saying a minute ago before Joe had to go. You know, when the Divas are on TV, like I said, I got to take a crap, I got to do my dishes, I got to clean my house. My cat's litter box need to be changed, something. But if Charlotte and Sasha Banks are in that ring, I cannot miss that. Cannot miss it. Because they are bringing back women's wrestling to the days of Lita, Trish Stratus, Ivory, Jacqueline, the women that could wrestle. Not go out there in the flashy in a pair of panties and a thong and look like a couple of whores that I would find in the street corner of West Warwick. No. They're bringing back honor to the women's wrestling division.
Right. That's the problem with WWE. They keep bringing in models. They keep bringing in pretty faces rather than women that can actually wrestle.
Bodybuilders, like who cares about that bodybuilder Donna, or whoever that big.
Most of them are models. They get them from catalogs, magazines. Alicia Fox is a model. Eva Marie, Cameron, all of them. Just every single one of them.
Yeah. And the ones that can actually wrestle,
let's get her.
The only ones that can wrestle are the NXT people. Those are the NXT divas are the only ones that they're actually getting that are from actual wrestling companies. Those are the only ones.
All right. Now we're gonna go back to WrestleMania. Well, we were talking about WrestleMania. Before we start wrapping up pretty soon, there's another topic I want to talk about is WrestleMania traditions. Like there are certain things that normally happen at WrestleMania, like certain matches, certain moments. Like for example, the Hall of Fame. In a way, it's kind of part of a WrestleMania tradition now, ever since WrestleMania 20. We're going to talk about a few particular matches that became a status quo for WrestleMania, and unfortunately, it got its own pay-per-view. Unfortunately, I'm actually going to have Haley started off with this about Money in the Bank. What is your thoughts on Money in the Bank when it was a tradition for WrestleMania?
I seriously wish they would have came back to this. It was amazing. The first few Money in the Banks were incredible. That was when, CM Punk won twice in a row. Phenomenal. And I mean, they're doing something kind of similar right now to this right now with their Intercontinental ladder match. I mean, that's probably to bring it back, which I wouldn't mind if they did that. If they had a ladder match every WrestleMania now with, 6, 7, 8 people. I think that could, for a title, I think that could really bring WrestleMania back to, because I feel like that match could be one of the matches that steal the show. I mean, and it's a shame that they had to get rid of this Money in the Bank and they make it, this pay-per-view now by itself, and it's not necessary. I don't know whose idea was that to change that. I feel like it was stupid. Especially since there's one title now. I mean, why not just make it go back to WrestleMania?
I agree.
I'll go with this.
No, I agree.
When it comes to, but they've done it with a couple matches. You have Money in the Bank became its own pay-per-view. Hell in a Cell became its own pay-per-view. They had that awful thing, Fatal 4-Way. Let's leave that alone. But when it comes to the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania, I have 2 words for you. Shelton Benjamin.
Yes!
Oh,
man.
Yes!
Oh.
There is a talent that they wasted, used, and threw away.
Oh.
You look at the one of the best moments was when he had the ladder in the corner, ran up it, and it was like, what the? There were so many moments in those matches that were just insane and intense. You had John Morrison doing his thing, but Shelton Benjamin would steal the show every single Money in the Bank. That is something that they've replaced now with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which if that becomes a pay-per-view, I'm driving to Stamford, Connecticut and shooting Vince McMahon. But, that's the way that I look at it. They really need something like that now. With the Intercontinental title, they're finally bringing it back to what it was. Now, Chris, you are a wrestling historian, much like myself. We've had this discussion, and I can't tell you how many times backstage, where the Intercontinental title, for my youth, when I was first becoming a fan of the business, and when I was first breaking into the business, the Intercontinental title was the Workhorse Championship.
Right.
It was a title that was establishing the next guy to go to the WWE title. Let's take a look at, again, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon. Let's go to another ladder match that will go into this match that we're having at WrestleMania. Triple H versus The Rock at SummerSlam. Another great Intercontinental title ladder match. Yes, you had the outside interference from China. You had the powder to the eyes. But it was a great match. You can go with, the ladder match between RVD and Jeff Hardy where the European and Intercontinental titles were unified. Great match. So the Intercontinental title is something that a WrestleMania could use a feature like this to bring it back to the prestige it used to have. Just like John Cena versus Rusev they're obviously going to put the strap, or at least it's what I'm assuming, they're going to put the strap back on Cena to elevate. In a way, I hope they do, Chris, for this reason alone. The U.S. title, at one point, let's go back to 2003 SmackDown. Eddie Guerrero, when he held the U.S. title, was doing the bit with Edge. Great series of matches.
Yeah.
Let's go back to when they revisited the WCW angle. You had Chris Benoit versus Booker T in the best of 5 for the U.S. title. They had great stuff for the U.S. title. Now, what I would like to see done, and I hope at some point it happens, unify the U.S. title and IC title and just have one mid-card belt. You don't need two.
Yeah.
But they're reestablishing the U.S. title, and I'm seeing it as almost like a stepping stone. You're going to go from doing whatever you're doing to the U.S. title, drop that belt, grab the IC, run with that for a bit, drop that, go on to the main event. The U.S. title has become, in my opinion, what the European title used to be, which is the first title that you really hold, that kind of establishes you as a legitimate champion, somebody they can believe in. Then you lose that, you go on to become the next up-and-comer, which would be your Intercontinental Champion, which is what I'm hoping Dean Ambrose becomes. Then you drop that, you go on to bigger and better things, you start main eventing. I think with Cena versus Rusev, you're reestablishing the U.S. title as something to get somebody ready. You have the Intercontinental title coming back to its glory in the ladder match, to where it should be as the Workhorse Championship. It's that match that back in the day you couldn't miss. Savage and Steamboat. Could not miss that match. You had great Intercontinental matches that you couldn't miss, where a lot of times the Intercontinental Championship match would overshadow the main event, would overshadow the WWE title, or the time the WWF title. So that's what it's doing, is reestablishing a belt. It is another ladder match. It's another, something that I'd love to see every year. Put the IC title up in a ladder match every year. To hell with the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. No offense to Andre, rest in peace. Yeah. But use that as that elevating platform where it should be. But that's just my take on it.
Right. All right. There's also another tradition at WrestleMania where the
tag
winner
team titles in the pre-show now? Sorry.
Where the winner of the Royal Rumble go against whoever is the champion at WrestleMania. And they first started doing this, I believe, in 1993. And the first ever person to win a Royal Rumble to go after a title was Yokozuna for WrestleMania 9. Now, with this one, and with this one here, I thought it was a really good concept and a good incentive to bring importance to the Royal Rumble, to where if you win it, you get a shot at the champion. But then we had that one period where we had two champions.
No. 2007, when Undertaker won the Rumble, you had 3 at the time because he had all 3 in the ring. He had Batista, Bobby Lashley, and I can't remember who the WWE champion was at the point. I think it was Triple H. Cena. Okay, sorry, you had Cena, Lashley, and Batista in the ring. You had 3 they could have chosen from. So but I get what you're saying. But which I think kind of lost luster at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
But we did have some favorites of, certain people that won the Royal Rumble and were able to become a champion or became a big name, like guys like Shawn Michaels, who won it twice, and the one at, I believe it was WrestleMania 12, he finally won the championship. Who was your favorite Royal Rumble winner to go into WrestleMania and wrestle for the champion?
I am biased to the nth degree. 2007, The Undertaker, because that was the one match that Taker had left to win. He finally got the Royal Rumble victory to add to the already career that you can't match, that you can never top. Outside of that, let's go with the 3-time winner, Stone Cold Steve Austin. When he first won the Royal Rumble, that sent him into that match at WrestleMania 14 against Shawn Michaels. That was that platform that set him on fire. He won the Rumble, got the fans behind him, had everything going for him, went to Mania, beat Shawn Michaels, and you had the Austin 316 era in full force. So you can't take that away from Austin at all. Outside of that, let's go with. You could do it with, in my opinion, Rey Mysterio. You know, doing that as the tribute to Eddie Guerrero, going on and becoming the world champion. You had Benoit, who went on to become the world champion. And these are guys that were established from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. In those 3 months, these are the guys that went from, let's say, upper mid card, lower main event to you're the man. So those are my personal picks. Thoughts?
How about you, Haley?
Batista winning the other year, fuck that.
Well, obviously we can, I can say Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin and that, but I'm a huge fan for the underdogs. But the thing is, with the Royal Rumble, I really can't remember an underdog that I really didn't think that really needed it to get to the main event. I mean, the only person that maybe it could have done something with was Sheamus, but obviously we know he dropped the ball with that. And I really don't think a lot of people really liked him winning that, too. I think a lot of people were expecting Chris Jericho to win that, and just all of a sudden, Sheamus won it. I mean, that was a surprise victory and everything, at least to me it was. But other than that, can you guys actually remember an underdog actually winning, like, the Royal Rumble?
Yeah,
because all it's been was there's been like Randy and stuff like that, but we obviously knew that those guys were obviously going to make it to the main event without any help.
Look at Rey. You look at what Rey Mysterio went through. Rey Mysterio was the complete underdog. No one would have given Rey the time of day to think that he was going to, first off, had the longest time lasted in a Royal Rumble match. Not hashtag Axelmania, which, by the way, I'm actually getting behind that. Just scary. I like Curtis Axel. I can't help it. He's not his father or his grandfather. But he's like that train wreck you just can't look away from. So you have to look at Rey Mysterio. He was a complete underdog. But won the Rumble, went on to win the strap, and had a great run with it. I mean, it was an emotional victory to win the Rumble for him, an emotional victory for him to win the belt. So that was a true underdog story. It was that Cinderella story almost.
Mm-hmm. What about Benoit? I kind of felt he was sort of an underdog in a way. He won the Royal Rumble.
Chris, you might know this better than I would. When he won the Rumble, wasn't he just coming out of the... he was just coming off the U.S. title bit, wasn't he?
Yep.
I think he was just coming out of the U.S. title program with Booker T, or it might have even been... No, because Eddie was doing the bit with Brock.
He started feuding with Kurt Angle.
Okay, yep. All right, so he just finished that up, and then he went on to win the Rumble. So, So, yeah, I'll definitely give Benoit his credit and say that, yeah, he was an underdog. Because outside of a couple of things that he did, he was kind of relegated to the mid-card.
Right.
Which was a tragedy.
It was. How about you, Mike?
I would have to say I've been going more with Shawn, Austin, Triple H back in the Attitude Era. More around that era between Austin coming in with the Austin era, and then you had guys like Shawn Michaels, establishing himself for coming from Intercontinental Championship into the WWE title picture. Those were pretty much my three. They were going from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. A lot of other good stuff, but I just have to say mine has to be Shawn, Austin, and Triple H. And Rey Mysterio, too.
I was actually a big fan of the controversy surrounding, like, say, for example, one Royal Rumble where Bret Hart and Lex Luger eliminated each other, and they ended up having to have, actually, I think it was like two matches at WrestleMania 10 where Yokozuna had to defend his title twice in that night. One was with Lex Luger.
I just
where
thought of
Lex-
another one,
Huh?
Chris. I just thought of another one you can actually bring up. I'd like to get your thoughts on 2010 Edge returning off the Achilles heel injury.
Hmm.
That was
The
one of my
surprise
favorites.
return and the Rumble win. When you first see him come out, you're going, he's coming off of what should have been a career-ending injury.
Yep.
You wouldn't have thought he was going to win it. So I do have to give Edge his props there.
Yep.
Or Cena when he came back at 30, the surprise. God, I'm just going to stop that there.
It's actually interesting. Like, there's some popular wrestlers that were injured, and then all of a sudden they come back and say, "Well, I'm going to go on the Royal Rumble." Like Triple H did the same thing when he
Yep, with
recovered
his
from-
quad. And
Well, you know what?
01.
There's also been guys that were dark horses or, surprise returns at the Royal Rumble that I would have loved to see at WrestleMania. I'll kind of go off on a tangent here for a moment. Let's go back to the 40-man Royal Rumble with the return of Diesel.
Oh, no,
Man.
40 man.
Hold on.
Yeah, that was a bad mistake right there. I don't know whose idea that was. to have
No.
40 guys.
What they did, they teased the Diesel versus Big Show thing. Never happened.
Yep.
Bad mark. Let's go to this year's Royal Rumble. The return of Bubba Ray. Would have loved to have
Yep.
seen Devon come out because what I was hoping for was hoping for the Dudleys versus the Ascension
There you
at
go.
WrestleMania. Because what that would have done, the Ascension beats the Dudleys. Well, holy shit, now the Ascension's really fully established. You know, you already beat the New Age Outlaws, then you go on, you beat the Dudleys. You done it. You're there.
Yep.
And you can stop, shitting on tag teams for heat that most of the time, the heat that the Ascension's getting is from guys like us who know what they're talking about. The kids that are in the crowd, they're talking with the Legion of Doom. They're going, "Who's that, Daddy?" So
All right. I think this is going to be our last topic for WrestleMania. And this is something that I bet a lot of people would always want to dream. There are always some dream matches that we wish happened at WrestleMania, but never did. Like, for example, I wanted to see Hogan versus Flair at WrestleMania.
yes,
Never
Yep.
happened. I don't know why it didn't happen. Instead, we got Macho Man versus Flair, which was fine, and Hogan versus Sid, in what would have been Hogan's last match at the WWF. But for some odd reason, I don't know why they didn't go with this, is why not Hogan versus Flair? Because you had one guy, which is Hulk Hogan, was the definition of professional wrestling, and you have another one who a lot of people would say arguably is the definition of professional wrestling. You finally have these two guys in the same company. Yes, you got them feuding, but why not have them in the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania?
I agree with you completely on that because if you think about it, when Flair was in the WWF, winning the Royal Rumble in '92, which was the first and only time the WWF Championship was on the line in the Royal Rumble, you could have gone with that. Because let's take a look at 80s wrestling. The two biggest names, the two names that defined 1980s generation of wrestling was Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. Complete dream match, bar none. Bar none. Now, I have a couple others that I'm going to go with. But, Chris, do you have any others before I go off onto mine?
No, I was gonna let Mike Miner and Haley go first, and
Okay.
then
Let him go.
like Mike Miner, like were there any matches you wish you could have watched at WrestleMania that never happened?
A lot of good dream matches that I wanted to see at WrestleMania, like the first one, Hogan and Flair. Another one that I wanted to see, pretty much would put the world title behind and would have boosted the girls. I would have loved to see Lita and Trish in the main event of WrestleMania because they did so very well main eventing that Monday Night Raw. But if they would have done it right at Mania, that would have boosted the women's division like crazy. With having those two young ladies going at it at WrestleMania in the main event, putting the world title to the side, putting it as a co-main event, and putting that women's title match at the main event, I would have been just like, wow, look at this. You got Trish, you got Lita. They put on a hell of a fight.
Yeah, that never happened at WrestleMania, huh? Damn.
I think it actually did. I want to say, oh God, oh man, now you're here.
Yeah, I don't even recall Alita
I don't
versus
remember it either.
at a WrestleMania. So Mike,
No.
I've seen them for Raw, but that's about it. But
Yeah.
with Lita and
Yeah, they main evented Raw, that one Raw, yeah.
that could have been a WrestleMania match right there. I agree.
oh,
with Mike.
that would have been woo, built that match up and everything with it. Oh man, that would have been a dream match for me, actually.
Any others for you, Minor?
No, I don't think there would have been any good dream matches that I would think of that would have been good for Mania.
How about you, Haley?
This is a popular one. Obviously I can't stand the guy, but The Rock versus Shawn Michaels.
Oh yeah.
I think it would not only would have been a great build-up, I think that it would have been a great match too. Obviously, you got two great workers, and even if Rock, obviously, even if it happened later down where Rock wasn't obviously, he didn't have the best cardio or whatever, Shawn could have definitely carried him through that match because if you have a bad match with Shawn Michaels, there's something wrong with you. But yeah, definitely.
Shawn can make me look good, so let's leave.
So Josh, you were gonna say something like some matches you had to see. You said a few.
I've got a few that might get a pop out of you, Chris.
Okay.
Let's go with modern generation right now. I would love to see, as much as I can't stand her, AJ Lee versus Lita.
Yes.
Ooh,
Because AJ was inspired by Lita, let's let him go. So
there
that's
you go.
one.
That's definitely past the torch match right there.
Exactly. I can also take Austin versus Hogan. That's one that I'd love to see.
Interesting.
Or because of the fact, I know we want to see Austin versus CM Punk, but I actually don't want to see that. I have a completely different one.
Oh,
Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Randy Orton. The Rattlesnake versus the Viper.
Ooh.
there you go. Oh,
So you got to go with that one.
yep.
Hogan versus Flair, would have loved to have seen it. There's another one that it's way past its prime, but if he was still able to do it, give me Dean Ambrose versus Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes.
Oh man, those two. Woo. They would put on a hell of a match.
I'll throw on two others, Undertaker versus Sting, which we're probably going to get, I'm hoping. And give me Savage versus Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, that never happened either.
That would be
That would've been a good
just
one.
amazing to watch. And that's about all I can. That's about all I can think of. I mean, just all of those would be to die for. If I could pick one, and I'll even leave Undertaker versus Sting out of it. If I could only have one, give me Austin and give me Orton.
There you go.
They'd be the one I want to see. Give me Austin and Orton. The rest of them, leave them where they are. Just give me that one, and I'll go home happy.
Yep.
I really like the Austin versus Hogan choice because when you look at Austin and Hogan, they are two of the most biggest icons in professional wrestling, but polar opposites. They were polar opposites. We have one who was the white meat babyface, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and one who is anti-establishment, anti-authority, but the fans love him.
what was it? The foul mouth, beer swilling, finger gesturing, toughest son of a bitch.
Right.
Yep.
Like it was like yin and yang those two, but they were still considered faces. But to have
Well, you
that
know
type
what?
of kind of like
You're right. I'll actually add to that because you went basically from Hulkamania to Austin 316. You had the 80s that were defined. Let's put it this way, and Chris, I hope this actually adds to your point, and you can agree with it. 80s were defined by Hogan. 90s were
Yep.
defined by Austin.
yeah,
This generation is defined by John Cena.
right.
So actually, you know what? I thought of another one. Let's do this. John Cena versus Hulk Hogan. It would be a shitfest, but you have the two.
Yeah, I definitely disagree.
You have the biggest. You have the two biggest names that if people said Hulk Hogan, you knew it was wrestling. Oh, it's the thing that Hulk Hogan does. Wrestling. Oh, that's the thing that John Cena does. The two biggest, Hogan and Cena, and there you go.
Yep.
Because you have the two poster boys of professional wrestling. Two true, yeah, Rock and Hogan was great. But Rock didn't have the level, and even at his peak, Rock couldn't compete with Austin for popularity. Rock could not compete with Cena for popularity. So it really would be, give me Cena and Hogan, and there's another one that you'd have to see.
I agree. If Hogan was healthier, then yeah, I would love to see that.
Well, Hogan's apparently in training for one more match.
Okay.
Not that I really want to see that. You look at him, the wind blows wrong, he needs a new hip. So, come on.
Yep.
Right. There's one more match I've been wanted to discuss that I felt was a really great match, and it's very underrated. It has to do with Jake Roberts at WrestleMania 17 against the model Rick Martel in a blindfold match. Now, do you remember? Did any of you remember that match at WrestleMania?
I do, but it's kind of like a hazy memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was actually one of my favorite matches from WrestleMania because it demonstrates that how great of a psychologist Jake the Snake was. Because when people think about a blindfold match, like how can anyone work in a blindfold match? One of the things I loved what Jake the Snake Roberts did to get the crowd into the match was he kept pointing in the air, like saying, "Where is he? Where is he?" Kind of like playing like hot or cold with the fans.
Well, that's because Jake the Snake Roberts, in my opinion, is probably one of the top in-ring psychologists there have ever been.
Mm.
He knew what to do, from the way he moved around in the ring to the way he delivered his promo. He had it down. So you want to put that was a great match. Definitely one of those that, and I hate to say it, but I think that Jake the Snake Roberts still to this day doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree. All right. To close this big, huge podcast special, we're going to ask, what was your favorite WrestleMania?
We going full WrestleMania or just match?
Full WrestleMania.
Ooh. You guys got to go first. I'm going to think.
All right, mine's going to be a very unpopular decision, but I really don't give a damn. WrestleMania 20.
Ah.
Hey, that had some great matches. The Return of the Undertaker. You had
And like
Benoit.
everyone hates it just because of that one match, just because of Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, and it's just like there's so many other great matches. I don't care about that match. Like I loved the whole build up to Christian and Chris Jericho and the Trish thing. That was one of my favorites. I'll never forget that. It's just there were so many great matches. It's a shame how people have to judge one whole WrestleMania on the main event.
Yeah, but WrestleMania 20, you had the triple threat match with Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. You had The
Amazing.
Undertaker's return as the Dead Man. They were great, and I think Eddie Guerrero faced Kurt Angle that night.
Yes, and
I
that
think
was a
so,
good
yeah.
And had a great match. So with Eddie going over by faking the ankle injury, taking the boot off, and that was how he won the match.
That was
With
great.
great psychology. So yeah, I'll give you WrestleMania 20 was damn good.
It was. To me, from start to finish, minus the that one particular match that I don't want to mention. So, I hated that match. Totally. Anyway, Mike, what was your favorite WrestleMania show?
Oh, mine had to be WrestleMania. I would say WrestleMania 2000. I think that's when they brought in the Hardys versus Edge and Christian for Terry's servants as a manager and that kind of deal. They brought like a big money bag. I think to me that one was a good, pretty much a match from WrestleMania 2000. I think that match was amazing.
I think that was No Mercy. That was No Mercy
Oh,
for the ladder match. That was the
well, actually,
Unification tournament.
the TLC match from I think it was from 2000. I don't know if it is or not.
It
Yeah,
was pretty
that
much
was.
even though it wasn't called TLC, but we can call it TLC. It was actually the triple threat ladder match, but there was tables, there was ladders, there was chairs involved, so pretty much it was a TLC match before it was ever called a TLC match. So yeah, 2000 was an okay show in my opinion, but that match was one of those matches, and let's not forget the triple threat match with Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and Chris Benoit for the Euro Continental title when both titles
Yep.
were on the line. Anyone remember that match?
Yes.
Yeah, I think because I think Kurt Angle had two matches that night. He had one against Regal, and I think he had one against Benoit, one for the Inter and one for the European Championship. And then somehow the commissioner said you're going to face those two in a triple threat for the same belts. And I think that's when Kurt was both champions at the time. That was amazing.
For me, I am torn because I'll put it to you this way: my favorite WrestleMania match would be Taker Shawn 1. My favorite WrestleMania X7, because that was the first ever official tables, ladders, and chairs match for one. Amazing match. You had Undertaker versus Triple H. You had Rock versus Austin. There were a lot of great matches, and I believe you had there's a European title match I really enjoyed, but just those three matches alone, I can watch that WrestleMania from start to finish repeatedly. So
European
that would be my favorite of all time.
Christian versus DDP. DDP was the European champion at the time for WrestleMania 17.
Was it 7? No, that was WrestleMania 18. WrestleMania 18 was DDP versus Christian when DDP was doing the whole, that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I just messed up on my wrestling history. Damn.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. We all do it. That was WrestleMania 18, because I will never forget that, because Christian threw the goddamn temper tantrum.
Yes.
That was honestly, I give Christian a lot of credit for coming back from that gimmick, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll just go with WrestleMania X7.
Okay. And for me, will be WrestleMania 20. I have to say, I have to agree with Haley on this one. WrestleMania 20 was, to me, from start to finish, minus that drizzling shit match, was really good. Even most of them were, even the shitty match was.
Actually, I forgot about something from that WrestleMania. You also had The Rock returning to team with Mick Foley against Randy Orton and Batista.
Yep.
And I think it was Ric Flair too. It was Evolution, versus the Rock and Sock Connection. And that was an entertaining match.
Yeah. Even though Mick Foley kind of dropped the ball a little bit in that match, but and even Mick Foley admit that he wasn't at his best in that match, and we saw him at his best the pay-per-view afterwards, which was Backlash when he
against Orton for the Intercontinental title. Yeah.
Yep,
he was
the
at,
4 rules.
That was definitely when Foley kind of gave, besides the match he did with Edge at WrestleMania with a spear through the table, from Mick returning, you could take Backlash that year, and you could take those 2 matches and say, you know what? Ric Flair versus Mick Foley wasn't bad either.
No.
So those were 3 great matches. Except for the whole, involvement of Melina. That was just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
the I Quit match. Yes. All right. So I guess this is pretty much everything we have to talk about WrestleMania. I mean, how long we've been online so far, Haley?
3 hours.
About 3 hours.
I knew it was going to go. Who called it? Who said it was going to be 3 hours? I did.
You did, Haley. I give you credit.
With you and Joe talking, I knew it. You two can't shut up.
Thanks. Feeling the love over here. Damn. Iced coffee, you've never lied to me. Don't lie to me now.
Okay.
So this is the longest wrestling throwdown video you ever done? 3 hours, Haley?
Yes, it is.
We did you and I with the Raw review went almost 2.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got this one doubling
Well,
that.
you talked about 90% of the time too, though. So.
Wow! Bang, bang, stick 'em, kid!
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the live viewers we have. I enjoyed doing all the video with all my boys and Chris and Minor and Joe. I'm going to put all the links in the description. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to join our Facebook group if this is the first time you're watching this.
And don't forget,
Chris, do you have anything to say?
Don't let me cut you off here, Haley. I do apologize, but don't forget to come check your favorite guy out next Sunday, WrestleMania Sunday, when my partner and I, Hunter Kane, take on Badass Brian Albertson and Rocky Rhodes for the Mass Anarchy Wrestling World Tag Team titles. And do not miss this match. On 4/11, it will be Steigen appearing one more time in RICW. Will it be the last time I'm there? I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm bringing hell with me. Peace.
And Chris, did you want to say something?
All I have to say is this podcast was actually fun, and I hope we do this again sometime, maybe next month or so. Like make this a monthly tradition, maybe. I don't know, but
you know what we should do? We should actually do, Chris. We should do a WrestleMania, not like a WrestleMania review, but a WrestleMania recap and review at the end of this to get all of our thoughts on WrestleMania and what we thought of it. Maybe we can mix in a WrestleMania and Raw after WrestleMania review and get a multiple point of view perspective on everything.
Well, that's going to be about 5 hours if we do that.
Clear your schedule, folks. Pack a lunch. It's going to be an all-day affair.
Anyway, like I said, it's been fun. Like Haley said, follow her on Twitter, follow her on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to her channel, The Wrestling Throwdown, and also all of my links to my channel, Dual Dreamer videos is up, and also Michael Miner's, and also Joe Passarelli's is in the video description as well. Please subscribe to us. And
after I edit this video for an hour, no, I'm just joking. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Deuces.